Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Crash and Ride podcast. I'm Patrick Ferguson. I'm your host. Today's guest is Erika Rickson. This is part two of a two-part interview I did with her. Part one was last week. You should check it out if you haven't heard it. Erika is the drummer for the amazing rock band Motherfucker. Last week we talked about her growing up with an alcoholic mother and sort of coping with that and trying to be the adult when there was no other adult in the room. This week we cover her move to Athens and joining the band Motherfucker and everything that's happened since then. It's a really great interview. If this is your first episode of Crash and Ride is a long-form interview podcast where I talk to musicians who've survived anxiety, depression, and addiction. My hope is that if we could have honest conversations amongst ourselves about our own suffering, we could start to see ourselves in the sufferings of other people and maybe really start to reach out and help each other. I don't think I'd be exaggerating to say that we're in the middle of a mental health crisis, and it's particularly affecting the most vulnerable sections of society. And among those people, I consider to be anybody without health insurance and access to mental health care. In my experience, that includes musicians and other artists. As I've said before, no one's going to help us but us. And I believe from the messages that I get, both on Facebook and text messages and emails, that this is helping people. This show is helping people. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to save lives. So welcome. Welcome to Crash and Ride. If you want to reach out to the show, you can email us crashandride@protonmail.com as our email address. That email is confidential. Nobody reads it but me. It's also encrypted. So, shoot me an email if you have some thoughts, and I won't use your name on the air unless you expressly give me permission. I'll protect your anonymity at all costs. Okay, a couple of quick announcements. Crash and Ride is brought to you in part by Greer Amplification. Greer Amps builds the best boutique effects pedals available. If you're looking for an overdrive, boost, fuzz, compressor, or tremolo that is rugged, road-tested, and at home on stage, in the studio, or in your living room, Greer has the pedal for you. Nick and his staff strive to build the best products around with the best tone you've ever heard. They believe in their products, and they stand behind them too, backing each one up with a lifetime warranty to the original owner. Each Greer Amps product is hand-built in Athens, Georgia, USA. Go to www.greeramps.com or visit your favorite music retailer today. I've been using Nick's stuff for a long time. I'm not a great guitar player, but I've got a bunch of his fuzz pedals, some early prototypes. I used a bunch of his prototypes when I was recording albums for 5/8 and Easter Island and other Athens bands. And it's great stuff. So, yeah, go to Nick's website, go to Nick's shop. You can make an appointment and walk in here in Athens, Georgia. Say hi to the man. He's a real dude and he's a really good guy and he makes really great stuff. Crash and Ride is also brought to you in part by Jittery Joe's, a local coffee roaster based here in Athens, Georgia. They have an espresso blend named after the podcast. It's called Crash and Ride. You can get that espresso blend on the Crash and Ride website at crashandridepodcast.com. I sell 12 ounces of it for $15 plus a couple of dollars for shipping. You can get it whole bean or ground. Just specify which at the time of checkout. Also, I've got all new t-shirts up. We've already sold out of a couple. People really bum rushed me on the t-shirts and I'm stoked. I've already shipped between 30 and 40 shirts. My buddy Fez wins again. He told me, make blue shirts. And I was like, man, nobody wants blue shirts. They want black shirts. And I made blue shirts because he told me to, and I'm sold out of blue shirts in a bunch of sizes. Go check and see if I still have your size. If I don't, I'll have it again soon. Go to crashandridepodcast.com/store, and that's where all of that is. If you want to try before you buy, you can go to Hendershots Coffee and try Crash and Ride Espresso. Hendershots is a musician-owned and operated coffee shop just steps away from the University of Georgia campus here in Athens, Georgia. It's owned by a guy named Seth. Seth is a great drummer. He's also a super guy, and he has a great coffee shop. Hendershots is where we're going to have the live episode of Crash and Ride. We're going to do maybe the second week in November we're looking at. I'm going to talk to Bob Sleppy, the director of Nucci Space. Nucci Space is an unvarnished good thing here in the Athens music scene. They provide referrals and subsidies for musicians to seek mental health care. You walk into Nucci Space, you say, hey, I'm in crisis. You fill out a couple of basic forms, and then they make a phone call, and you can go see a counselor for like $15 an hour. It's crazy. It's really, really good, and it's saved a lot of lives, including my own. Nucci Space pays for that by having hourly rehearsal spaces that are very fairly priced. They have a 365-day-a-year garage sale running right there at Nucci Space for used gear. A lot of cool stuff. There is a 3-ply Ludwig kit that was down there the last time I was down there that was begging for a new owner. Go check it out. They also have a recording studio where they teach young people to be recording engineers. And if you're one of those people who's fortunate enough to have some tax liability you want to offset, Nucci Space is a certified 501c3 nonprofit, so any donation you make to them is tax deductible. If you want to talk to them about any of those things or anything in the world, you can call Nucci Space at 706-227-1515 or go to nuci.org. That's nucci.org. Speaking of nonprofits that I endorse, if you're in crisis, if you're experiencing anxiety and depression, if you're contemplating self-harm, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's 24/7. It's free. It's confidential. They have trained volunteers to talk you through your crisis. 1-800-273-8255 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. If you're a trans person experiencing anxiety, depression, or gender dysphoria and you want to talk to a peer, you can call the Trans Lifeline's peer support line at 1-877-565-8860 or go to translifeline.org. These past couple of weeks, people have been kind enough to send me some information about some new mental health nonprofits that are out there for suicide prevention and depression counseling. If anybody knows anything about the Trans Suicide Prevention Lifeline, I'd love to get some more information about that. Please put them in touch with me. I'm going to maybe call them this week too. And also Backline is a new organization I'm just hearing about musicians in crisis. I'm going to reach out to them and maybe get someone from there on the show. But if you know someone there, turn them onto the podcast, tell them I'm going to be reaching out, and let's get together. Does it sound like I'm hurrying? I am kind of hurrying. The reason I'm hurrying is because as soon as I finish this, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of stuff in a backpack, and I'm going camping, and I'm going fly fishing. I should get back just in time for sound check for my shows the day this show comes out. I have 2 shows that night. I'm playing with Adam Klein and 5/8, but by the time you hear this, those shows will be over. Before I go do all that, I want to talk to you a little bit about this week's episode. As I said last week in the intro to the episode, I was really stoked to do this interview because Erika is not only a really great drummer, but a really good person, and she's a good friend. But this is easily the longest conversation I've ever had with her, and it's because she's kind of a private person. And what was amazing about the experience of interviewing Erika about the topics that we covered in this interview, and believe me, they're not light topics. This is a very heavy interview. It's the further she let her guard down, the more I realized what an amazing person she is. And I don't think that would work with everybody, but it certainly is true for her. The more I saw of who she really was, the more I realized this person is a fucking champion. And I'm just so proud to know her and so proud to be her friend. So we cover a lot of difficult stuff in this interview, and it was tough going sometimes for her, and I applaud her bravery and her resilience and her ability to survive in the face of everything. She's a fucking hero. So anyway, here's part 2 of our interview with Erika Rickson. So take me up to the beginning of Motherfucker.
So I was in a few bands in town, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, but there were bands that I absolutely worshipped that I did not have any connection to, like Cinemechanica and We versus the Shark. We versus the Shark in a really intense way. I used to listen to them in my commute on Album 88, which is a college station in Atlanta that had the most wattage of any college station in America for a long time.
Was at one time probably the best college station in the country.
It's absolutely my favorite radio station of all time. I grew up on it. It taught me about weird music, straight up. I heard things that I would never hear in any other context.
Right.
I liked punk music because of it. I liked noise because of it. I liked weird electronic stuff because of it. And then they had this great program called the Georgia Music Show, which they would literally just play pretty much any Georgia band that sent them a tape.
Right.
And I didn't think about local music at all because where I was before I moved to Athens was just not... There wasn't a lot going on. And even in Atlanta at that time, there wasn't a lot of rock and roll. It was mostly a lot of hip hop, awesome hip hop, and a lot of great DJs coming up before that exploded. And everybody was a DJ. That was before that. So all the really sick bands that had, something to say were coming out of Athens. Like, I heard a lot of Elf Power, things like that. And then I remember hearing We versus the Shark the first time on album 88, and I never heard anything like it before, ever. I didn't know what it was or how it was done. I didn't understand it whatsoever, but I was completely compelled, and I sought them out online, and I, listened to them, and I was like, oh, Athens, that's so cool. And then when we moved to Athens, the first night I was in Athens happened to be one of the last shows that We versus the Shark did at the 40 Watt. And so like, instead of unpacking any of my shit, I was like, well, I'm going to go see We versus the Shark. So I went and saw them. But like, I didn't have access to any of these bands that I really cared about. And I found Cinemechanica and I found all of that. And I just didn't know how to get into that stuff because I didn't play that way. I played like a pretty hooky pop drummer at that time. And the projects that I was in at that time, there was Romanenko, of course, which was, punk influenced pop, hooky rock. It was definitely a rock band, but, we had it was a lot about dynamics and stuff like that. It wasn't complicated stuff. I wasn't showing off at all. It was very much me serving the song. But we performed a lot and, we did a lot of our, we paid our dues on Monday nights at Caledonia quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which for years, like
yeah.
we just said yes to everything, which,
yeah, of course.
There at that time, like, there's in Athens, there's two schools of thought on that, like say yes to everything and just be out and be visible. And then the more seasoned, you can't play Athens more than like once every 3 months because people will just not show up because they'll be like, well, I can just see them whenever I want and there's no demand. And both of those things are true. Depends on who you are and what you're doing. But I didn't know anybody in town, so yes was the answer. So we played everything. And then I was in another project that was called Violence Gang, which was funnier at the time.
Yeah.
It was funnier at the time. And it was me and Max doing drums and bass. And we had a spoken word poet named Bella Sparks, who is absolutely one of the most compelling spoken word artists I've ever heard in my life. Like, will make an entire room of people talking, just shut the hell up and listen to everything she has to say. She's just one of those people that can, and she won't even be loud about it. Like, she can just reel you in. And we were like, well, what if we did kind of like, not rapping, but like we figured out a way to put music to what her stories that she would tell. So we did that, and that was a great project. We did a lot of cool stuff with that. So I was out and I was playing, and I remember seeing this band called Incendiaries at there's this basement bar in Athens that's been renamed like 20 times. At the time it was called Rye Bar. Before that it was DT's Down Under. Before that it was the Downstairs. Yeah, and now it's called the Grotto. I don't know what it's called now. It doesn't matter. They don't have shows there anymore, which is the point. But
when I moved here, there was a couple of people here that I had relationships with before I moved here because of Governor's Honors. And which is, if you're not from Georgia, Governor's Honors is this thing where they take the 600 sort of, I don't want to say highest achieving high school students because it's not really all about achievement. Sometimes it's just about potential, which in my case it was. And they put all 600 of those high school students on a campus where they can all get pregnant in South Georgia. We used to joke that GHP stood for Go Home Pregnant.
Yikes.
But there was a guy named Jim Stacy who was a visual artist and musician who was sort of one of the managers of the Downstairs and was the eventual owner. And they had this crazy menu where you could come in and get, like, it was a vegetarian restaurant, and it was all like chana bhaji and food and jasmine millet and food I've never heard of. Yeah.
And this was at DT's? The same place?
This was called the Downstairs.
No shit. I can't believe they had food in there. That seems
little
impossible.
Tiny kitchen. It was delicious and amazing.
Wow.
And bands played there. I think up until, for many years, the worst 5/8 show ever was at the Downstairs. But then we had another one that sort of knocked that one in a cocked hat at the 40 watt, and there's probably one since that was even worse. But yeah, the downstairs was a very special, formative place in Athens, and so it doesn't surprise me that Violence Gang had some shows there.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the bands I was associated with played there a lot, just because we could get booked there all the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of discretion or like worried about like, will you pull an audience at what was then called Rye Bar at that time. They were just like, okay, yeah, you can do that. It's the PA, you can turn that on if you want, but
right,
don't blow it or whatever. It was not
right. Nobody
gave a fuck. Like there was nobody. Like it was just like, yeah, you can play here or whatever, which was great because you could, I think I've had a lot of worse shows in that room. I've seen a lot of worse shows, but I've also seen a lot of like incredible, like packed to the brim, people freaking out, and like there's no rules down there. There's nobody peeping in to see what's going on or anything. It's like nobody's trying to look cool in that space for whatever reason. It's just like I've seen some really powerful, like especially punk shows down there, just like people losing it and going for it, and that's it was a less like you didn't have to talk to a sound engineer and like impress somebody with your sound check, or you could just do whatever. And, it never sounded good. That wasn't the point, though. It was just like, we're here. It's Tuesday.
Yeah. I think at the time that 5/8 played there, we had to bring our own PA.
Yeah. I would love to hear about the worst 5/8 show ever.
I could tell you this much. After the show, Mike and I both we ran out of the bar after we played and both climbed up into separate ginkgo trees to hide from the crowd as they left.
Wow.
We were so ashamed.
I feel like you've brought the show up several times. Like it's almost a secret. Like you're like it's like you piece it together. It's the Easter egg. Like you piece it together if you listen to all the episodes.
There've been some 5/8 shows that were truly epically bad.
Yeah.
Because we were always going for it every night with a different set list every night, and a lot of just Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Such is the thing we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I saw Incendiaries at Rye Bar, and they were hands down the coolest band I'd seen in there, and it was these women that were a little bit older than me. Like in my mind, they were big kids still,
Right,
like in the high school mindset of like the big kids versus the little kids. Like they were the big kids, and I knew that they were tied in with like. Those folks knew We versus the Shark and Cinema Mechanica and all those bands, and I was just like not cool enough yet, and like I hadn't been in the city long enough for people to know who I was. I was just kind of doing my thing, and I saw them, and I remember being absolutely compelled by everybody on the stage except the drummer. And I remember thinking to myself, like, God, this band is so rad. This band would be my favorite band, maybe, that I could possibly imagine if they only had a better drummer. And I was like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could just be their drummer, And it was funny because I kept going to their shows. Like I went to any show they had, and I dragged people to it because I wanted them to be like, I wanted other people to validate how into it I was. And I don't know if they cared as much as I did. It was just like, it was dissonant and it was weird, and it was all that mathy stuff that I didn't know how to do, but it was also melodic and kind of like, it had these delicate moments, but it was also super aggressive and tough at times. I was like, this is just really speaking to me. And I'll never forget it. I got this phone call from Natalie, who used to be in An Epic at Best, which is another great Athens band, long gone. She was in another project called Language Arts that played with Romanenko all the time. Like we would play in Athens, and we did a couple of things in Augusta and in Atlanta, and we played with them over and over again. And she actually used to be in Incendiaries and the genesis of it, and then didn't end up being a member for very long. But she started that band with Erika Strout, and then it ended up being Erika and Mary Joyce who fleshed it out. And I think Mary intended to play drums in the beginning, and then when Natalie bailed, she was like, well, I guess I'll play guitar.
Yeah.
And so I got a call from Natalie, and she's like, hey, I wanted to pitch this to you. Incendiaries just kicked out their drummer, and I suggested you. I think you'd be a really good fit. And I was like, oh, holy shit, that's like one of my favorite bands. And I literally can't even believe that. I literally just said, like, I wish I could be their drummer, And she's like, well, I'm going to give Erika Strout your number and, just, see where it goes. Is that cool? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Do you know that's how I joined 5/8?
Really?
I was their biggest fan.
Really? That's awesome.
Never missed a show. Favorite band ever. And their drummer got hurt in an industrial accident, and they asked me to fill in.
Isn't that what we're all waiting for? Is our favorite drummer to get hurt, but not die, just get injured to the point where they can't do it anymore.
I have said many times that the most dangerous place for the drummer in the 400 unit, Jason Isbell's van, would be between me and a moving bus. Like,
I'm almost positive I've told Bryant Williamson from Cinemechanic, I'm like, if Mike ever like breaks his arm or
right.
I don't think I could hang, honestly, in that environment.
I
don't think anybody can really like duplicate what Mike does, but I've made that joke many times.
Yeah.
I would certainly try. I would do my damnedest. But anyway.
So you got the call.
So I got the call, and Erika calls me, and she's like, hey, Erika, it's Erika. And that was funny to us at the time. And we just had a really good rapport right off the bat. And she was like, yeah, I would like you to try out. And I just happened to have Romanenko was releasing our first record, and it was coming up in a couple weeks. And I was like, hey, just come to our release show, and I was excited because it was at the 40 Watt, which I had only played with the cover band the one time, so I was like, yeah, my original project is playing this club that I care about, and it'll make me look good, so yeah. I invited Erika. She showed up, and we ended up going for a drink at a bar that she had some art hung up on the walls there, and we went. It was whatever was next to Max Canada. I guess it was RPM at the time. Not that this matters to anyone that lives outside of Athens, but we went and got a drink, and we talked about our moms, and like our moms were both nurses, and so we talked about what it was like to have a nurse as a mom, and like how being diagnosed all the time and like not going to the doctor unless like your arm was cut off or something.
My wife's mom is a nurse too.
Yeah. It's a thing. Like daughters of nurses, it's a whole thing. But so we got along really well, and she's like, yeah, come audition, it'll be cool. And I showed up, and it was my kit was like a cheap Tama Rockstar, like something I could afford that wasn't quite as shitty as a Pearl Export.
Right.
And I show up, and it's like, I don't know what to do. And I remember thinking like, okay, like I need to play like the drummer from We Versus the Shark, because that's what they're expecting, which of course is not another thing that is not something you can duplicate. Like I can't possibly duplicate Scott. Like he is a maniac. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull that off. So I just, I auditioned, and I remember thinking Mary Joyce was like super stoic, and I got no read on her at all. I was like, she does not like me. And Erika was just kind of like, moving things along song to song, just kind of running the show as far as the practice. And then me and Mandy Branch, who was playing bass, just got along really well immediately. And I was like, oh, cool, the bassist likes me. Awesome. And that's the most important part. And I was like, I'm just going to lock in with the bassist the whole time, which is what, the classic move and what I've been trained to do. So I was like, I'm just going to, do what Mandy's doing and just kind of flourish on her parts. And Mandy just loved it. And I was like, cool. Like at least one of them thinks I'm like kind of cool. So I came to find out that the reason they kicked out their old drummer was because he just didn't listen to anything Mandy said, like at all. Oh, and Mandy just lost it one day and was like, you will listen to every word I have to say. And then they were like, we can't do this anymore. And so me just immediately like locking in with her and listening to what she was doing was exactly what they were looking for, I guess. Yeah. And there was an air of like, yeah, we're going to try out other drummers. But then that quickly faded and they were like, yeah, we really want you to do this. So I learned the songs they had, and I really had to change my style a lot because, like I said, I was very straight ahead, very, just pop driven songs, very hooky, which was honestly a good fit for them too, because they, like I said, they had a lot of parts and they were really dissonant, and some of them were could have been confusing if there wasn't something to glue it together,
some anchor.
Yeah, and yeah. I was really excited to try to do that for those songs because they were great songs, and I honestly, it took me a little while to get adjusted, but once I got comfortable in that band and like realized that Mary didn't hate me, she's just kind of like always stoic and chill.
Yeah.
Mary's just like that. Mary's just cooler than everybody, and it's not like an air, she just actually is.
Yeah.
But she's just actually that cool. But
yeah,
so once I realized that like we were, we got along and everything was good, I just went for it, and I finally started like inserting my own ideas into it, and then it got really fun. And I was working with women that had done shit. They'd been on tour. They'd been in a lot of like, minivan, shitty punk band, gonna play wherever we can, wherever the van dies, that's where our show will be,
right.
And Erika had actually toured with Cinemechanica playing bass, and like she'd done a lot of touring, and I just was so enamored with that because I hadn't done anything like that. And Mandy did, Down with the Woo and like all those awesome bands that she was in. And Mandy, I didn't know that Mandy was low key like Athens famous.
Yeah.
Mandy's a big deal, and she'll never realize that, but Mandy Branch is actually like a big deal.
So of my generation of musicians, Mandy's always been everybody's little sister.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
and for me, she's like kind of like the revered older sister. You know,
she's just so wide open and emotionally available that there's an involuntary almost reflex to be a little protective of her.
Yeah. Well, I've actually I had some band practices with people that know Mandy, and they were like, we had an entire conversation like, if you don't like Mandy, you're actually a bad person.
Yeah.
Like, not liking Mandy equals
bad
get
person.
The fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
what's wrong with you?
You're not welcome here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mandy is such a like you said, just such an open heart, and it was so cool to work with people that were more experienced in the kind of like DIY, just gonna fucking do whatever, we're gonna make it happen, versus me, who was just completely academic. At that point, all of my music had been academic, and then playing in this cool band with my girlfriend that actually seemed to work out a little bit, and then like it hadn't been on that level, and they definitely improved me as a player, and I feel like I kind of elevated that band a little bit. Eventually I did.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like their old drummer wasn't really part of the team.
No, he was very much like, look at this cool part that I think is cool. Yeah.
It's a trap you can fall into as a drummer if you're not really trying to be a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't suck or anything. It just wasn't right for that band.
Yeah.
He truly wasn't a good fit. And it was really, it was just my first outlet. And honestly, joining that band was probably the most important thing I've done. And maybe for my career, for playing in general. Because it opened me up to so many people and ideas. So Incendiaries was a band that was, everything we wrote, I was really proud of. Everything we did was very good, but it was very slow moving. Mm-hmm. Everybody was considerably older than me. Some, and I was, I was like 25 and like, had girl troubles. You know what I mean? Like, like my girlfriend Blair, and I was just reeling and trying to, pay my rent on time and like work in whatever job I could, and like. But I always wanted to practice. I was so hungry. Like, I just wanted to be at practice. I was in 3 bands at that time. I would practice, you know, on my own even. Like I practiced as much as I worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which meant I had no money.
Right.
I didn't actually get a lot of work, but I did play constantly, and it was really exciting to be in 3 bands, even if they weren't like doing anything grandiose. It was just like a hustle, you know, and I really liked that hustle. And I got good. You know, I had to switch gears. I had to go into Romanenko practice and like put on my, you know, does this chorus convey does my drum part elevate the lyric, the content of this emotional lyric, and then go into Incendiaries, and they're like, okay, like do that, but like 10 times tougher. You know what I mean? Like, can you make it weirder and more Satan, but a little less, you know, like make it badass, you know? It's like, it was all about like, yeah, that's tough, you know. It was super fun. So it was cool to, and Violence Gang, you know, is all about like, you know, chill hip hop vibes, you know, like trying to do really like backbeat, like I was really into, still am, A Tribe Called Quest, and I really wanted, like, all those samples were, you know, a lot of great drummers, like some of the greatest drummers ever were sampled and then put in those hip hop songs, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna try to do those things, you know, like.
And Low End Theory is a live drummer. Yeah, and it's like I just, a lot of it, like you said, was live, and it's just like so much of that influenced me, and I just wanted to. You know, so I had 3 very different projects going at the same time. And Incendiaries went, you know, Romanenko and Violence Gang both came to an end shortly after Max and I broke up. Actually, well, that's sort of the truth. It's at a similar time, close to the same time. And we tried to keep it going a little bit, and we actually tried to form a new project, and there was just a disconnect on what we wanted to do. I think Max wanted to do very sparse, and, you know, at that time I was like, man, I've never really gone all out. I've never really gone for the fancy, like, look what I can do shit. You know, I've never done that on a stage and been forward and intense, and I was kind of getting an opportunity to do that with Incendiaries, and I just was like, man, that's just not where my head's at, and it wasn't right. I wasn't right for what she wanted to do, and it was just a good time to part ways. We had a very brief project with Erika Stroud actually on bass called Flesh and Blood that was just really, really good. It was all, you know, guitar harmonies and big bass and drums and great vocal, like 3 vocals going at the same time, and like, but the emotional tension between me and Max at that time was just untenable. We couldn't like shelve it long enough, and I was also working like 60 hours a week, and I just couldn't make it happen anymore. So we had to not do it, which is a bummer. Like, I actually really wish that band had done something. It was cool, but Flesh and Blood, were there any demos or anything?
God, I wish there were. There probably is something somewhere that she I bet she has something in like a drawer. Yeah. Or some, you know, that she lost during a move or some shit. Right. Like, there's some shitty recording from Nucci Space, like a practice space, you know, somewhere. I wish there were. It was really cool. But we ended up, Eric and I at some point just really wanted to be more present. We wanted to play out more. Incendiaries we didn't go to Atlanta. We didn't really leave outside of Athens. We played a lot of benefit shows and stuff. It wasn't like, they weren't trying to go on tour, and that's all I wanted to do, because I hadn't done that yet, and everybody else had, and they were like, I don't really feel like doing that right now. I'm like, fair enough, but I need it. You know, I needed that experience, and I just still hadn't had it, and I was like,
some people aren't cut out for it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that was the issue. I just, like, you know, Mandy was in Hero Severum, and they toured a lot. Yeah. And like, Mary had toured a lot, and Mary's goal was to adopt a kid. Like, that was all that was her main objective. And, you know, she has a very, you know, difficult job too, that requires a lot of her emotional and energy. And I totally understood why she didn't, like, you know, they didn't want to go back into that, like, well, let's sleep on a floor somewhere. It made sense that they didn't want to do that at that time. But Erika and I were like, yeah, let's do something. And we decided a while back that we were going to, start a different band and just see what happened. And like, we were tossing around names and stuff. And we didn't know what direction we wanted to go in. We just knew we wanted to do it, and there was a period with Incendiaries where like we couldn't all be at practice at the same time. So I was at all of them. Right. I was at practice, and it might be just me and Erika, or just me and Erika and Mandy, or just me and Mary and Mandy. Mm-hmm. And we actually wrote a really cool EP doing that. It was really, it's crazy how it came together, because I honestly didn't think it would ever happen, because we were never in the same room until we were recording it, really.
That's wild.
Yeah. But, and we didn't even really realize, like, we were all really going through a hard time, all of us separately. Like, Mandy was on the verge of getting divorced. Mary had gone through a really intense breakup with somebody she'd been with for a long time. Erika was going through a breakup. I was going through a breakup. Ugh. And we weren't really talking about that at practice. We were just kind of making music. And then like we recorded this EP and we're like, damn, this shit is sad. Right. This is a big mood record, Yeah. It was really, really good. And I wanted to shop it. I wanted to do stuff with it. Mm-hmm. And it just... it just couldn't get legs. It just couldn't. Like, everybody's schedules, the way life was going at that time, and like everything was just hitting the fan. It was a timing thing, and so Incendiaries just, it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe we need a break. We need a hiatus from this, or just not do it right now. So Erika and I were like, we booked a Slop Fest, which is a festival in Athens that happens every year. Right, it used to happen in lieu of Pop Fest, because Pop Fest didn't happen for several years, and then there was like this void, and so Slop Fest kind of came out of the ashes of that, and it was literally just all the rock bands playing for each other. I mean, you've played it; it's a blast. Yeah. I look forward to it every year, because it's like the most honest festival that exists. It's 3 days at our favorite, local dive, and just the whole crowd is musicians. Everybody is playing for each other. Yeah. Like, this is our shit, and we all want to hang out, and everybody's so supportive, because it's like, you go see your friends play all the time, and you get to be like, yeah, it was a great set, but whatever. But like, when you're all in the same place, and you're all just like feeling the energy of like, this is like, our city actually has a really intense culture of music that, and at that time, especially when Slopfest was like getting its legs, most of the stuff that was being exported out of Athens was very, poppy, kind of dreamy, very indie, right? Which was all cool. It was good stuff, but there was some really kick-ass rock bands like stewing, just waiting to do something kick-ass, and Slopfest was a great place to, do something weird, or just do your thing. And
the picture on my personal Twitter account is of me at the last note of the Powder Room set at Slopfest, and I have that. Remember that enormous gold marching snare I had?
I remember this set. I was next to that set. I was on the side stage, I was on the side of the stage watching that set, because that's where I like to hang out, is on the side, so I can analyze the drummer and store all of their coolest moves into my brain, and then rip them off.
That night, the bottom head of that drum just exploded, and I just put it on my head. That's what the picture is from.
It was so awesome. Like, Slopfest is that time when you're like, well, if I'm gonna break a guitar, this is the night. Right. It's just big energy, like a lot of intensity, and people are going crazy for it, because it's what we care about. So that set was incredible. I remember it very well. So Incendiaries was booked to do Slopfest, and then I forget why we had to cancel, but there was a conflict, and we had to cancel at the last minute. We had about a month beforehand, and for whatever reason, Erika and I were just super bummed out about it. We were like, damn it, Slapfest is like the one time that, we do shit and people care. You know what I mean? Like Incendiaries was kind of this weird band where like people were either like completely compelled by it and like super into it, or they would just stare at you like you were a piece of art on the wall, like at a gallery, and they're like, but is it art? Like, is it good? I don't know. It's weird. It's like Incendiaries just wasn't, it didn't grab everybody, but the people that liked it a lot. And I remember, we were just so bummed, and we're like, fuck it, I just want to do something. We went to lunch and we were like, you know what, let's just form a band and not worry about it, and we're gonna call it something really obnoxious, and we're gonna act like we're the greatest band in Athens, and like, why the fuck don't you already know who we are? And we're just gonna make up an identity, and we'll just write as many songs as we can in a month and perform it, and we'll see if we can get booked. And we'll just do it. And, it was a very loose concept. Like, let's see if we can do it. I remember Erika Strout in that moment texting Derek Wiggs, who puts on the festival every year. They both worked at the same restaurant. And it was like, hey, can my band play at Slapfest since Incendiaries can't? He was like, yeah, sure. Hell yeah, let's do it. What's it called? Eric and I at the time had been watching a lot of Samuel L. Jackson movies, like a lot. And we were also watching Boondocks. We were just watching a lot of like, and like we were listening to like Ice Cube and like a lot of like gangster rap and shit. And we were just saying motherfucker to each other all the time. Like to the point where it was a problem. Like we can't just go out in public and say motherfucker all the time. Like, we'd be like, what were you thinking, motherfucker? Like, why'd you order a Coke? Motherfucker, you don't need a Coke. You need a water. Like, just stupid shit. Like, anywhere we were just saying motherfucker all the time. And we were like, oh my God, we should call it motherfucker. That's perfect. Like, that's hilarious because it totally embodies that, like, we can't say this all the time in public we can't just randomly say motherfucker because it's fun. And I'm like, or we could say it constantly because that's our band name. And like that
is hilarious.
We just have this, persona like, yeah, we're the best band you've never heard of, blurg, like just being really obnoxious about it. Well, and the idea was so simple. It's like, okay, we're gonna play the, whatever the fuck we come up with, which we had nothing, of course. This is all in one day. We're just like, okay. So we got excited, and then we went into a room and we wrote the first song on our record, on our LP, it's Confetti, but the first song is called I'm Fucking Dick Dale. And the reason we called it that was because Erika was working on like 16th note guitar runs, just like,
yeah.
And at that time she wasn't great at it. And I was like, fuck it, like just put it in there, like get good at it, because that's how I wrote drum parts. I can't play this yet, I'm gonna play it because I want to. I'm like, and if you suck, it doesn't matter because no one will ever see us again.
Right.
So she was like, I was like, just I was like, do it like you're fucking Dick Dale, like you're Dick Dale, dude. Right now you're Dick Dale, like. And she was like, yeah, fucking Dick Dale, and just so the whole song became like, how do we incorporate that?
Right.
And then we wrote, and all the song titles were just like the first thing that came to our minds. Like, it had nothing to do with the lyrics. It's like Snot Rocket, absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Everything on that EP, that first EP we did, we just shit out immediately as fast as we could. And we got to a point where we're like, oh man, we're probably going to need some help with this, because we kind of hit a wall. And I was like, we should get somebody to play bass. Like, who can do it? And like, everybody was playing Slapfest. And I was like, well, we could. And Mandy was in another band at that time called Kill Kill Buffalo. And she had gone through her divorce, and she was recovering from that. And Mandy had kind of been so bogged down with her relationship, and it was just oppressing her so much that her creativity and her desire to do things just got, zapped by the emotional struggle. And we spent a lot of time together kind of working through that. And like, I was working through shit and she was working through shit. And we would just go and drink and talk shit. And it was really fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Let's see if Mandy wants to do it, So we asked Mandy, and she was like, you know what? Fuck yeah. Like, she was starting to feel empowered again. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. That'll be fun. All right. So So Mandy agreed to do it, and then we just wrote 5 songs. I think one of the songs we did was literally just 2 chords and 2 parts. We were like, we're not even gonna have a bridge. We're just gonna do these 2 parts forever. And we showed up at Slapfest, and we made duct tape stickers at Slapfest while we were waiting for our set. We would just like take duct tape and like with a box cutter and do different colors of duct tape on other duct tape that said MF. And we would go up to people with the duct tape and would slap it on their chest and we'd be like, motherfucker, 11 o'clock. Like just super arrogant, like super stupid. And it's also a safe space. Like Slapfest is like, it's your buddy, you know, it's like your friend and that's in that other band. They were like, okay. So people watched because we were obnoxious about it, and it went over really well.
That set is legendary. People still talk about it.
It's funny because
it crushed.
It's really funny. Like people were like, holy shit, this is great. We're like, what? This is shit we made up like 2 weeks ago.
I mean, there's no denying. And I've talked to many musicians, PRF guys from Chicago, people in Atlanta, our friend Jake, and every one of us has at least once seen motherfucker absolutely laser beam a room and just destroy. And so like whatever you guys were doing was exactly right.
It was genuinely came out of like, let's just have fun and play the music that we've always, let's just, I don't know if it's something that happens with women in music where you just kind of put like a ceiling on what you can do and pull off on stage. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not do that crazy thing in my head because I don't know if it'll go over well. I don't know if I can land it. And it's like, what if we just played all the parts that are dream parts? Like, like I'm Fucking Dick Dale is literally the ethos of that band at that time. It's like, I can't quite do this, but I'm gonna make myself do it until it's good. And that was kind of at first the way the band was going, and then suddenly people cared, and then I think it was you actually. So I think it's been brought up before. Southern Shelter and Sloan Simpson and Mike White, who make these incredible live music videos of Athens bands, and it's an honor to have them do it. Like if they do it, you're good, right? You know what I mean? It's like if your video is on Southern Shelter, like if anybody ever wanted to give a shit about anything that ever happened in Athens, that's where you would go. That's the first and last stop. And so the fact of, and like we never had an Incendiaries video. You know what I mean? It never happened. No. And like none of my bands had one. And I was so excited, like, cause I thought those guys were so cool. And, they made a video of our first actual, like, build set. And I think it was you actually that put it on the Electrical Audio Forum.
It was me.
And which I had no concept of. I had no idea what that
was. I knew they were going to love it.
And all of a sudden it was like, hey, we want you to come to Chicago and do this enormous thing with all these bands that when I checked out, I was like, holy shit, these bands are fucking incredible.
So good.
Like disgustingly good. Like I remember the first, like listening to Fake Limbs and being like, I have to talk to that person. I need to talk to whoever those people, I need to talk to that drummer. I need to talk to that guitar player. Like everybody in that band seemed like the coolest person to me. And I'd only heard the records. I didn't know anything about those guys. And like, I listened to so many of those bands that were listed, and I was just like, oh man, okay. And then that video just kind of found its way into people's, scroll or whatever. And all of a sudden, people were contacting us, which I had no concept was going to happen. Like I wasn't ready for that. And I was fielding all these questions, and like I was, suddenly being invited to do things. And I was like, shit, well, I'm going to book a tour. I'm going to do it. Like, and I'd never done that before ever because I hadn't really toured that much. I'd done a lot of regional stuff, never booked a tour in my life. And I was like, fuck it. If I'm going to do it, now's the time. This is the freewheeling, let's try it band. So, we said we were going to do the PRF barbecue in 2014. And I started booking the tour in like December of 2013. So PRF
Barbecue, PRF is a tongue-in-cheek name for the Electrical Audio Forum. PRF stands for Premier Rock Forum, which someone was very, very butthurt about something that was said about them and on what they considered to be the Premier Rock Forum on the internet, and that became the sarcastic name of the forum itself. But every year in the summer, well, there's now several sort of gatherings throughout the year, but the big one is the summer barbecue, where in Chicago, over the course of 4 days, 40 bands will play.
I feel like, and now it's like a week of events.
Yes.
It's like an entire, like I remember it was, 3 days, and then the next time it was 4 days, and the next time it was 5 days. I was like, holy shit, this is like...
It's a big deal.
Epic. Yeah.
Yeah. Pinky Doodle Poodle played it this last summer. We sold exactly $666 worth of merchandise.
That's the coolest shit I've ever heard.
It was insane. I mean, you come in to play your set, you pay to get in because everybody pays to get in. But when you pay to get in, it's an all-you-can-eat and all-you-can-drink kind of thing. Like, there's people cooking all the time, and there's beer on tap, and people donate food, donate beer, and you check your merchandise in. You go to the merchandise table, and there's someone there, usually a very smart and talented person who's also in one of the other bands, and they count all your shirts, and they count all your stickers, and they count all your CDs, and everything gets checked in, and gets put in a database, and then people buy merchandise for the entirety of the week, and at the end of the week you pick up anything that wasn't sold and you get a PayPal payment, or I guess maybe next year they'll probably do Venmo, for everything you sold that week. And you end up hanging out for a couple of days, eating and drinking for free, and then you get this nice chunk of cash at the end from all the merchandise you sold, and you get to see some of the best people in the world. And that's not even the nicest thing that the PRF has done for me, but we'll talk about that some other time.
No.
But it's an amazing festival, and it's incredible.
So it is. And to echo why it's so incredible, when I was booking that tour, and I started, and I was reaching out to all the people that I knew. Like, I was talking to Ryan Oliveira from Man Ray. I was like, I don't know how to do this, dude. And he's like, I got you. Like, he was helping me out. I was like reaching out to everyone. Like, could you put in a word for me? Cause no one knows who I am. Like, it's all about networking. And I had a lot of that in this town and in Atlanta, but I had zero anywhere else. So
right.
I was, at that time. And I was, cashing in some favors, which I didn't know how to ask for help at that time, but actually Ryan was the person that was like, dude, that's exactly what touring is. It's asking for help. The whole thing is just asking for help. Don't be afraid to do that. You have to, or you won't do anything, and you'll end up, burning a hole in your gear and your wallet and everything else.
Yep.
So I started booking it, and it was almost done. And right before it was March, and the barbecue was in June. And I was trying to, at that point I was trying to figure out where are we going to sleep and stuff like that. I had done most of the hard stuff, and I had a couple of dates that were almost confirmed. And, out of nowhere, my mom passed away, just, out of the blue. I was sitting on my couch one day, checking emails, listening to weird music. And I got a phone call from my little sister, who told me that my mom had died. Just, I couldn't wrap my brain around it, because I never saw it coming at all.
What happened to her?
It just floored us. So my mom had dealt with chronic pain most of her life. Around the time that I was 19, 20, when I was going to AIM, my mom stopped working. There was a series of reasons for that. A lot of it was her alcoholism had just wrecked her body, and she had a lot of pain. And my mom had some weird genetic shit anyway. It wasn't anything visible, but her spine was curved weird, and she had to have some surgeries, and she just had things that had built up and it been exacerbated by her excessive alcoholism. And so she was just, I don't know, she left her job. And I also think that there's probably some other reasons for that. Like, I don't know if maybe she showed up drunk at work or something. I don't know if maybe, we never discussed that, because there was this sense of, with alcoholism, there's a lot of protecting the person you think you are so you can continue drinking. You know what I mean? Like the identity of like,
and
everything's fine. Don't look over here,
That's a really intense observation. I'm going to be pondering that for a couple of days.
It's true. My mom there was a period of time where she just couldn't talk about, like, something would happen that was really fucked up and she would just erase it.
Yeah, we lose jobs. I mean, I'm a recovering person and I have not always been sober, and jobs just kind of go away. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
They fired me.
It's the disease convinces you that it's not about what happened. It's as long as you can maintain.
Well, they never liked me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's something else. It's always something else, because that's what addiction does to people. It just it warps your sense of reality to the point where you, like, as long as you can keep using, then everything's on track. No matter how fucked up it gets. And for my mom, that was like, she was an extreme case of that. And so it's March. So she passed, and what she had been on, you asked me how she died. So she had been on methadone, and I didn't know that. She'd been taking methadone, which pretty much, I mean, methadone can kill you straight out. It's a very intense pain medication. It's kind of a last resort for a lot of people. It's very addictive. It's very debilitating.
Well, it's an agonist that people use as a way of avoiding the withdrawal of heroin.
Yeah. My mom was taking methadone for pain.
Do you think that she got to a point with all the surgeries and the pain management from that she got strung out on opiates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so that's happening, and it's and at this time, I hadn't been home in a while. I'm like, my band is, for the first time, somebody gives a shit about something I'm doing musically, So I'm up my own butt and I'm doing my own thing, and it's exciting. And I'm not really, going home that much. And we had plans to do things together, but I wasn't really, focused on that. And I had just seen her because our birthdays are close together, and it had been a month since I'd seen her, and we had a really nice time. And, she looked okay to me, and she said she hadn't been drinking because her medication didn't allow it, and it would, she couldn't, and
I mean, you can drink on methadone, but it's not advised.
So she said that, and she never really talked about drinking in front of me, because she knew that, like, that would just lead to a can of worms and, then disassociating reality and shit. So the fact that she said that to me point blank, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's great. So the phone call I got was that she was passed out in the bathroom, and it's so fucked up. From what my sister could tell, who was 17 at the time, she was like, well, she was passed out. And the thing is, we grew up with my mom being passed out a lot. My mom was passed out many times, and you just kind of were like, God damn it. And you walked on and you did your thing. Yeah. You go to school, you go wherever you're going, because you can't fucking deal with that right now, because you can't. Like, if you're going to make it to school, you can't deal with the fact that your mom's passed out on the ground. Unfortunately, this time it was critical, and there was no way for them to know that. My brother was asleep upstairs, had no idea. My sister goes to school, and it's just like, and she's probably trying to think, like, how do I shake that image so I can just go be a normal kid at school and interact with friends and not think about it? Because that's what you do. You just push it away.
How old are they at this point, your brother and sister?
So my sister passed. She would be 21. My brother's 23. So,
How old were they at this time?
So my sister was 17 and my brother was just about to turn 18 in June.
Yeah.
So my sister had just turned 17 like the month before. All of our birthdays are in February. So she was fresh 17-year-old. My brother's it's really
that's so
fucking
much
tragic
for a 17-year-old to carry. The fact that there may have been some possibility that she could have done something.
So that was a lot of what I talked to her about, but so she definitely carried that. But there was nothing that she could have done. Like, it was, by the time that she had even seen her, it was, heart failure,
Yeah.
So, I don't even know that. I mean, I have no idea. And honestly, my true honest belief is that if it hadn't been that day, it would have been another day.
Yeah.
It would have been the next day or the day after that. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, I do.
I just had no idea how much that her medications, and I don't even know if that was all she was taking. Like, my toxology report said multiple drug toxicity. That's all it said. I'm like, that's not any information. I had no information. Still don't really. Heart failure, and it just happened. And it absolutely decimated our realities. Like, it's literally my AD-BC. Like, that's the moment for me.
Your what?
Like what I said was my AD and BC. It's like that is the pivotal moment in my life.
Where, like the date this before your mother's passing and after.
Yes, like that moment of just being floored. Like, when my sister called me, I thought it was one of my grandparents, because they're older and, there had been some stroke scares and things like that. And I was like, oh shit, my grandmother or my grandfather has died. And I was not at all prepared for my mom to just be gone at all. And, the hardest thing, and I know, I'm sure you can relate to this as someone who also lost a parent not too long ago, or close to the same time, actually. There was a lot of forgiveness that I was working on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I know, man.
Finding that forgiveness.
Yeah.
And just not having enough time to fully give it,
Yeah.
But, so my world became protect those kids. Like, I didn't process the grief for a really, really, really long time, because I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with these teenagers?
Yeah, well, you were their guardian for so long.
Well, and it was always that way in my mind,
Yeah.
And they were older and they were kind of doing their own thing, and they were, I felt like my sister in particular was being pretty successful in school, and there was a lot of forward momentum, and I felt like it was going to be okay, so I wasn't as involved. Like, there were teens now, they had, driver's licenses and lives and shit going on,
Yeah.
So when all of a sudden the rug got ripped out from everybody, suddenly my stepdad's back in the picture, this guy that I never wanted to see ever again, and now he's like right there, and I have to fucking interact with him and make big decisions. And he is their legal guardian, and his word is the word, and I don't really have any recourse in that matter. So the situation with them became something I couldn't. I tried to bring them to Athens immediately. That was the first thing I did. Like, I was trying to find a way for them to live as close to me as possible, so I could help them, because I knew people here, and I knew I could, get my brother a job and help my sister finish high school, and then help them get to the next place, because I had some small resources here. So, stepdad absolutely said no to that. That was not an option. So that story is very painful and really long. So I'm not going to get too much into that. What did happen with the band, though, when I absolutely felt that sense of lack of control is I became like the dictator of my band. Like I pushed us as far and as hard as I possibly could to be as successful as we could, because anybody gave a shit for the first time ever. The PRF folks were such a, like, it was incredible to walk into a room and immediately feel understood and immediately feel like, I hate it when people say I found my tribe. I think that's like a really obnoxious phrase.
Well, usually because it's white people whose
it's
tribe
white
is
people
everywhere.
like, I don't have a culture that I associate with, so this is it now. But like I genuinely felt like the people, it was just so everybody was very authentic. No one was trying to flex. No one was trying to be the best. There was no headliner. There was no revered person. Like, I mean, everybody in that room was quantifiably the shit in whatever they were doing.
Yes.
Like, truly. Like, even if it was something that I'd never heard or seen, it was like, you're really good at that thing you're doing. And I felt extremely lucky to have been in, like, that was the right time for me to have that moment. And I hadn't, like, I wasn't sure I could get on stage and do that. And there was so much pent up in me at that time. And I was, it had only been, 3 months since my mom died. And I was like, fuck, am I going to like abandon this entire tour? And I'm like, if I don't do this, I might never do this. This might be the last time I get to do this. So I did it. And the folks that were involved, like, I had to tell them, like, I'm going through a really tough time right now, and I'm really nervous about this. And I said, like, I don't know if I can do this thing, because I don't know if it's going to go over well. I don't know. And Jonah, who was in charge of it at that time, reassured me so much. He said, I know it's a leap of faith or something. Essentially, he said this, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, it's a leap of faith to go. And I know when you get here, you're going to feel better about it. Everyone does. And I think you should just go for it. And he really just kind of helped me not abandon it. And I was really thankful for that, because, somebody I didn't know, just being super empathetic and like still being like, no, fuck that. You deserve to do this set in front of these people who are probably going to really like it and give a shit. So we did. And I was blown away by the response that people gave us. I had never had so many people care about anything I had done musically at one time. And people from all over that I had never met, never seen before. It was extremely validating, and it just was at the perfect time, because I was the most vulnerable I'd ever been in my life.
Yeah.
So that was an extremely pivotal moment. And then, we met Ryan, who was in charge of Sick Room Records, and I didn't even know I knew Sick Room bands at that time. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh shit, I know some of these bands. Some of these bands are really great. And I actually discovered bands by looking through that list. And he wanted us to make a record, and he was like, I want to put out a motherfucker record. And all we had was like, our self-made, CD baby
right,
EP
right.
CDs that didn't even have like a real cover at the time. Like, it was just like a sleeve with like a picture of us in it. And like, we didn't have enough of anything. We did have some really cool t-shirts, but yeah, everything sold out. And at that, we didn't have any merch left, and we were like, well, fuck, what are we going to do on the rest of this tour? Which was really short. It was really short. It wasn't like proper. It was like probably like 2 weeks or something, but
yeah.
I guess we were like, well, fuck it. I guess it doesn't matter, because we sold it all. That's fine. We did what we came to do. But so Ryan was, it's like, shit, somebody sought me out. They want me to make a record with my own original project. What? That's amazing. So then it became like, well, let's write a record. And for a band that literally had no plan to do something like that, it was absolutely astounding. And that was when it was like, okay, we're going to practice constantly, and we're going to write a really great record, because we like, this opportunity happened once ever, in my whole life. And it's like, and I'm, 29 years old. I'm thinking, I'm 29. I haven't done shit. I have nothing to show for all this work I've done. It's like, okay, I'm finally going to make a record at 29, like something that's tangible, that can be distributed. And, so
that's a good bunch of folks, the PRF.
Yeah. I put a lot of pressure on my band to make a great record. Yeah. And I was definitely the band Nazi. And I have since apologized profusely for that time period when I was also like shelving my grief, and I was having anger, and the stages of grief were all acted out while we were making that record. Like, a lot of those songs, actually Confetti, that song is about people who would complain about their problems that were just really, minor and insignificant, like, or bitch about their parents, like, God, my mom wants to come visit. Ugh, I don't want to deal with her, and shit like that. And I couldn't hear them. It was like just like awful noise, like people being like, and another thing about this awful situation, it's just, it was just like a piercing, awful noise in my ears. And I was just so irritated with everybody. And I'm like, I can't be mad at other people for experiencing problems, like regular problems.
Right.
But I was actually pissed at them for having an easier problem, because I felt completely defeated. Like, I did not know what my brother I didn't know what was going to happen with my brother and sister. I didn't know how all the legal shit was going to work out, because, there was property, there was no will, there was so much to do. There was a funeral, there was all these things I had to invent out of nothing.
Yeah.
So when
this was the final time your mom thrust you into adulthood. Prematurely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And my band, was the outlet for me. It was
sort of the shock absorber.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we did a lot of cool shit. That record's awesome. And I'm not taking credit for that. I do know that we worked extremely hard, and that I feel like I pushed us. Some of it was probably very productive. A lot of it was counterproductive. So when I listen back to that record, to me it sounds like, being able to actually complete something all the way through, and it was something that was very important to me. Like, my arm is on that record cover. Like, it was literally a part of me. And I think, Erika and Mandy cared a lot. Like, but I needed it. It had to go well. Yeah. It had to, for me. Whereas for them, it was like, fuck yeah, we get to make a record. This is fun. Yeah. Like, it should be. You
were like, this is life or death for me.
Yeah. It was literally like, if nobody gives a shit about this record, then everything I've been doing is nothing, and what am I going to do?
So that record came out in 2015, is that right?
Yes. 2014 was, it was finished then. We recorded with Joel Hatstadt at what is now called High Jump Media, but was at the time Joel Hatstadt Audio. Joel is a very, very good friend. He's also in Cinemechanica. He plays bass for them. Joel has done incredible. He does incredible work. He masters records all over the world, material from all over the world. He's a very good friend, and someone that has benefited my perspective on music, and I can't say enough good stuff about Joel. He is somebody that has really elevated me as a musician way more than he could ever know. Truly. Yeah. He's just one of those people that is so not egotistical and super humble, but is absolutely incredible at what he does. We also recorded the Incendiaries EP with him, and he actually kind of rescued the Incendiaries record when it was falling apart, and between studios, Joel saved it. So Joel's been my go-to guy in this town for years and years. So when we recorded the EP with him, and that was super great and really fun. And so we went right back to him with Confetti. And I was a nightmare in the studio. I couldn't my tracks, like, it was never perfect enough in my mind. Like, and I'd never really been that much of a perfectionist. Like I am, but like not to that extent, to a point where it was, Well,
there were so many things outside of your control at that time. And this was something you had some control over.
Yeah. And, I could hear it back in my ears immediately and be like infuriated that, the one particular ghost note wasn't exactly where it was a little dragging behind or whatever it was, and I remember a great moment that literally changed all of my perspective on recording what, like, rock and roll and music, the music I make. He came in after like a jillion takes that he was like, yeah, I think we got it. Like, we got it. And I was like, we don't have it. We got to keep going, more takes, and he came in at one point and he was like, hey, like, you're making rock and roll music. So if it's too perfect, it's not rock and roll music. So let it not be.
Right. And
it just totally unmade everything that I like. It completely alleviated. Like it was like an Advil straight to my, you know what I mean? Joel's so calm. Like he'll just be like, yeah, it's great. Let's do it again. Like he's always very bouncy about it. He enjoys doing it. And he just straight up never let my stress influence his headspace, which is fantastic. And he totally just is like, dude, you're making like a rock record. Just make a rock record. Don't overanalyze it, because then it's gonna sound like shit. Essentially, he didn't say that, but like, it was much more eloquent and wise when he said it. And I was just like, oh fuck yeah, you're right. So then it was like, what take feels the most like what I'm trying to say, as opposed to, is it perfect? And that is how I've been approaching recording ever since, as far as in that such situation. If I was hired to do somebody else's record, that'd be totally different. I would be very clinical about it. But but if I'm doing my shit, like, does it feel like me? Does it feel like, it's a little, did I pull off that fill even if it's not exactly right? You know what I mean? Does it land? Is that exciting? So that really shaped that record after that. Like, he really helped me get through that. And we knocked out drums pretty quick, despite all of my despite my identity crisis within the I think it was like 2 days or something. I just like completely exploded. And we did some most of the guitars, the drums were done at Full Moon Studios, and some of the guitar, and then we finished up the guitar at Joel's house, like straight up at his house. And it's funny because, I was like, this is somebody's putting out my record, and like, it's going to go to Chicago mastering. That was already like, that's what's happening. That's where it's going.
Yeah.
Which is exciting. Yeah. Bob didn't do it, but even still, I was intimidated by that. I was like, holy shit, like, Chicago mastering is a big deal, So I think a lot of people think you need to pay a lot of money to make the greatest record, and I'm not saying that. Joel is worth 10 times what you pay him, no matter what you pay him. Yeah. Whatever you pay him. I don't care if it's $100,000. He's worth 10 times that. Like, whatever you settle on, truly. And we did it quick, and we did it, executioner style. It was like, we're making a fun, punk influenced rock record. Let's not drag this out. And I'm really glad we did it that way, because it sounds like that. It sounds urgent in the right way. It sounds like, we got to, it, to me, the way the record came out, it sounds like there's an urgency to get to the next track in a good way.
Yes. Like Rock for Light by the Bad Brains.
Oh, I'm gonna listen to that and overanalyze it.
No, I mean that record. The gaps between the songs are the shortest I've ever heard, and they still seem like too long. Like you're just like next
song, go. I, and of course by the time we were done with it, like Erika and Mandy kind of, I think, were tired of being around me after that, which is totally reasonable. Mm-hmm. So, listening to the mixes and the masters was me. Like, it was on me to do that. And they would like, I would basically be like, okay, we have, I've done all these revisions. Do you like this one? And they'd be like, yeah, it sounds cool. I'd be like, but why does it sound cool? Like, what part, like, do you like, and like the notes were very sparse. So I took a lot of ownership over that part of it. Also something I'd never really done that much.
Right.
I'd been a part of mixing. Like, I always was in the room. Anything we'd done before with Joel, I was always just like sitting there watching buttons, and I'm sure annoying the shit out of him. Like, what does that thing do? What's that for? What's that line mean? Like Joel very, like, either putting on headphones and completely ignoring me on purpose, or just humoring me. Like, he's the best.
He's a really kind man.
Truly the best. And I don't know. We make each other laugh too, so that helps. But I took a lot of ownership over like the revisions with everything, and by the end of it, of course, I fucking hated the record, because that's how you've done it. Right. It's done when you can't possibly listen to another note of it.
Yeah, no, I've been there too.
Yeah, so it was done, and very appropriately, very, very appropriately. So we get this opportunity to do this record at the PRF barbecue. The next PRF barbecue we went to was when we got the record in our hands.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was when it showed, like, it, because Sick Room's out of Chicago, so we were gonna go do it. We went to Chicago with Powder Room and you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was a whole time.
yeah
That was also probably a nightmare then. I wasn't quite ready to be a person again, but
but I really enjoyed that tour.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was tough for some and really cool for others. I had a great time, and I'm really glad we did that, because I don't know, that one was really good.
I mean, I have this thing about touring. Sometimes I have this terrible conflict, because I play so many punk rock clubs, because that's normally where I'm playing, and there's nowhere to hang out, and I kind of want to just hide in the van, but I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
But then you were like, I just kind of feel like hiding in the van. It's like, cool.
Yeah, no, it was rad. We had a lot of good van talks. A lot of good van talks. It was really nice. Like, there were times when, it was intense. And at that time, like, I got into this thing where I would leave everything out on the set. Like, I put everything into the set. And then I was just tapped. I had nothing left. And then people would want to talk to me, and I'd be like, nope. Which sucks, because like up until then I was like, I'm gonna if anybody wants to talk to me about my band or anything, I'm gonna sit there and talk to them. I don't care what happens. But there's something that happens when you literally just, and I, like I said, I was so vulnerable at that time, and it was like I would worry that if somebody said something, like even by accident, I would freak out or like cry or something. Just like I was so surface at that time that I was really afraid to like talk to somebody about like real shit, especially a stranger. Like, hey, I'm gonna freak out on you right now. I'm gonna say some really out there morbid shit. Sorry. Right. Or I could just sit in the van and cool out for a little bit. Yeah. I needed a little bit of So that was a good time. And I felt very comfortable with everybody there, so that was really good. But yeah, when we got to that barbecue, the first thing that happened was we got our record, and like that's still to this day the only thing I've ever had on wax, and the packaging was so much cooler than I thought it was going to be, and the people who touched that record were all people that I was so enamored by, like every detail. Like Mike White, who takes the videos with Southern Shelter and everything. He did the photography for everything we did on that record. And then Matt Cherry from Maserati, which is very likely my favorite band most of the time. Yeah. He did all the layouts for us, and he offered. He was just like, "Hey, I'd really like to do this for you," and I was like, "Holy shit!" Because at that time, still Matt was this untouchable, cool, big kid, still a big kid, and it's like now that guy is somebody that, I run into him at a show or something, and it's like super fun to hang out and talk. It's like this band, for whatever reason, unlocked all of those people that I wanted to know. And
I mean, Steve Albini was bragging on that record about how great it was for a year after it came out.
Yeah, actually. More than that. There was a print. The last time I saw it, there was a print. There was a magazine that's in the UK. Oh, fuck, what's it called? I really hate myself for not being able to remember right now. And there was, a little chat with Steve Albini in this random, English rock magazine, and somebody asked him, like, what are the bands you're into? And he said Motherfucker and Dead Rider. And I was just like, the fact that anyone of that level has ever heard anything that I've put in a can anywhere, like, that's crazy to me. It blows my mind. Even if he hated it, I'd be like, fuck yeah, he heard it. I mean, like, Steve Albini could be like, this is the worst record in history, and I'd be like,
you still be like, score,
fuck yeah. I absolutely offended Steve Albini with this record. No, but the fact that he brings it up and talks about it, and when I got to meet him and stuff, it's like, this band, for whatever reason, I don't know what the recipe was. Part of it might be all the fucking chaos, and part of it might just be that, for whatever reason. I mean, I've been playing with Erika Strout for a decade now. It's been exactly 10 years, like in September. So, I mean, at this point, it's like, whatever it is that we do, we do it, and it's good. It's just people, we write a song, and sometimes, a lot of times, the people that are interested in the style we're doing really like it, which is all I've ever wanted, is somebody that wants to hear it. And be like, I've been able to go, I got to go to Europe about it. I got to go across the country with it. I haven't toured nearly as much as I want with it, but I've been able to, I got a great rapport with a lot of the clubs in Atlanta that I used to go to when I was a teenager, and like, was like, oh, everybody's so cool in here. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm hanging out at the Earl or whatever. It's like so cool. And now, it's like, hey, I see that there was a time when I love Melt Banana. Melt Banana is one of my favorite bands of all time. I've seen them a jillion times. They're a Japanese hardcore band, and they're like the weirdest thing that's ever happened, and I just love them.
I like Japanese bands.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, Melt Banana is just the epitome of like reckless abandon, and we're gonna make crazy shit, and it's gonna be great. And they work harder than probably anyone. They've been doing it for like 20 years. Yeah, they're crazy. It's great. It's amazing. And they come to the States. I can't wait for my next show. It should be coming up soon. They come every like 3 or 4 years or something. But they were coming to Atlanta, and I saw that they had a show on a Monday and nothing booked under it on the calendar. So I just hit up Damon at the Earl, and I was like, hey, do you want to make my dreams come true and let me open for Melt Banana? That would be literally the coolest thing ever at that time. And I got the balls to ask for the first time. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do it. Fuck it. And we got the show. Yeah. And then Agata, one of the most like, he's such a hero guitar player. He's insane. Nobody sounds like him. Nobody ever will. And he comes up, and he's bought our record, and he asked me to take a picture with him.
Oh my God.
Us, like the whole band.
That's
not
so
just
great.
Me, but like he was just like, I want, let's take pictures together. I love, this is so cool. And he listened to the whole set. I mean, there are bands that are not nearly as iconic as that band who, we go on and they just fuck off somewhere. But that meant everything to me. And there weren't that many people there, but it was everything. Yeah. And that's why I do it. Like, that's the point. Those connections.
Well, and you guys, didn't you just open for Tropical Fuckstorm?
That's right. Sure did.
Jesus Christ, what a force of nature that band is.
This band has opened for a lot of incredible acts. Like, I'm waiting for any one of those to be like, hey, you should probably go on this big tour with us. That would be really neat. But
Yeah.
buy into a tour or something. But I've gotten to meet heroes and people that have influenced me so intensely, and had to, not puke in front of them and like keep my cool and
Right.
like, getting to play with obits, and shit. Like, there's been so many great acts. I can't even remember everybody right now, but like Tropical Fuckstorm was the most recent one. Just a lot of really powerful projects.
I mean, you guys have done incredible work, and it's gotten you in front of some amazing bands. But I also know that like the last 18 months of your life have been really tough.
It's true.
What happened with your sister?
So, it's something that I can't wrap my brain around still, and I don't know that I ever will. My sister passed 2 years ago. What's the date? 2 years ago tomorrow. Actually,
man. I'm so sorry,
yeah.
Erika.
And very similarly to my mom, it was drug use and like some bad shit that she bought from a friend or something. My understanding is it was fentanyl, which at that time was becoming like, hey, you guys, people are dying because they're buying, Xanax or whatever. And fentanyl, I mean, shit, it killed Prince,
Yeah.
And
it's everywhere.
My sister, once again, just out of nowhere, 19. It's hard to not make it. It's hard to not feel like a failure, because through all this dysfunction, I was tasked with protecting those kids. And she moved to Athens to be closer to me. And she was right there, She lived walking distance from me. And we weren't hanging out. I helped her get a job where I was working. And, she met a guy there. And I jokingly said, don't date any of the guys that work here. And she met a guy there, and she didn't tell me that they were dating, and it was kind of a big secret. And I guess similar to her own mom, to our mom, she was very secretive, which, to protect. And she was, I guess, doing a lot more drugs than I had any concept of. She's super young, so it's that, like, when you're 19, you can do crazy shit and then look fine the next day, look like $1 million, act completely normal. So I had no idea that it was as severe. And honestly, I know so many people that, did fucked up, like way more fucked up shit, way more drugs than her, way more drugs than, I never did really. For me, whenever and it still happens, if I get too drunk or if I get too fucked up, I look in the mirror and I see my mother, and I can't. I just can't. It's never been a solace for me. And fortunately, whatever gene that passes on that gives that predisposition didn't come my way, I guess. And as much as I would love to have drowned my sorrows, I've never been able to do it that way. But my sister, I imagine, was just trying to block out the bad feelings and, feel good. And that's so fair. And she was a kid, kids, when something that devastating happens when you're that young,
you get robbed so much of ever feeling any kind of free joyfulness. You know, like when I was 19, I was in music school. I had a bunch of friends. I was hanging out. I was, you know, living my living my dreams, you know, and she couldn't do that. You know, we had to sell a house, you know, that was on us. We had to throw away our childhoods, literally. Like, I remember going into my mom's house, that house, and finding, like, you know, the drawings you did when you were in kindergarten or some shit, like things that your mom would keep, and just having no time and having to get rid of it. Because where's it going to go? It's not going to go in your, you know, your 1-bedroom apartment. That's for sure. And there's just something really painful and something that people shouldn't have to go through, especially kids. And it's a really vulnerable age anyway. You know, you just sort of kind of have an idea of yourself at that time. You only sort of exist as an individual. And then your identity is just wrapped up in tragedy and death and trying to block out images of things you have seen that no one should have to see.
I don't think that at 17 you're really capable of processing.
Absolutely not.
That kind of grief. And I remember my father's mother died when I was the age your sister was when your mom died, and just not having any idea what to feel or how to feel and just shoving it away.
Yeah. And I know their relationship with their father and, you know, my stepdad, same guy, you know, it's always been bad. It's always been a sense of, you're my kids, but I don't want you, you know, like, I don't want you to live with me. I don't want you to, he didn't step up and love them the way they needed a parent, and he didn't do that. And I couldn't bring them to me. I couldn't do that. I tried and I couldn't. And at that time, it's tough when you're the older sibling, because on one hand, it's like, no, fuck that. Those are my kids, you know?
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, it's like, I'm their sibling and I don't want to dictate their lives. That's not my job. It's not my job. It's not my job to make them do this or that. My sister didn't want to leave her friends at that time. And I thought to myself, like, God, if I was 17, the only thing I would want is my friends.
Yeah.
And when I was 29, the only thing I wanted was my friends, and my friends were the only thing that saved me from that, you know, and through that, and still do. But my sister dying just created this hole of, it's just wrong. It's just a thing that's wrong that you can't make right. There's no reasoning it. There's no making it okay. There's no way to think. There's no way to solve that puzzle, you know. I think about my mother, and I think about how much pain she was in for so long, and the struggle she was under. And like I said, if it hadn't been that day, it would have been another day. And that was a trajectory that had been put in place and systematically made that I had no control over. When it's a kid like that, you feel completely responsible. Like, how could I have undone that? How could I have made that better? You can't not feel that way. It's impossible. It's impossible. And my brother is only like less than 2 years apart. Like, they shared all that tragedy together. They
they never were apart through that. My brother also now lives in Athens, which he came not long after my sister died, which was good. But their bond is stronger, like, than most siblings I've ever seen, barring twins.
Yeah.
Which maybe you can relate to. I don't know, but
yeah.
But I it's hard because you can't. I think about my brother all the time because it's his loss is immense. And he's the big brother too, and it's so close. And I know that it eats him and it eats me, but it's got to be compounded. Like, and for me, it's like a faux parent. Like, I should have been the adult that saved her. Whereas with my brother, it's like we knew each other's minds, we knew each other's hearts inside and out. Like, where we share this, the hardest time of their lives was completely intertwined. And I can't imagine how his loss, I can't imagine it. And it's hard because we've spent a lot of time talking about really painful things, and for so long, and with my sister too, like, there was a period of time when whenever we saw each other, was always like about death or about legal shit or the house, or our family's been tied up in a lot of legal things outside of this too that revolve around our grandparents and their property too, which is separate, which it's all compounded. So there was never a time when we could just be siblings, and I really wanted to create that with them. So I made up a Thanksgiving tradition that we never had. So I started trying to, like, I'm not a cook. Anyone that knows me knows, so I don't cook very well. So the first time I did this, I made a turkey, and it was fine. And I made a bunch of sides. And my siblings came over, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're vegan." I was like, "Well, when the fuck were you gonna tell me I made this turkey?" And now my two siblings have decided they're vegan, and and I was just like, "Okay, it's fine." So then the next year, they showed up like 6 hours late or something. They showed up at like 10 p.m. And the whole thing was like, fuck it, we're just gonna cook like a couple of fun things together, like some dessert stuff, and like eat sides or whatever. Like, we're not gonna worry about, big production. We're just gonna make like the sides we like, and a cake or something. So they show up really, really late, and we make this, like, my sister and I make this caramel cake by watching this BuzzFeed video, and she's like, she can't read the directions and follow it, and I can't look at the video and follow it. So we're just fucking it up. We're like doing it terribly together, and we made like, and it ended up being delicious, but it was the ugliest cake I've ever seen. But the plan was not to talk about painful shit just for a minute, just sometimes, just like, can we just shelve it? And I think with my brother, it's very hard for him to, he's definitely been affected by this, in the sense that, like, I think he disassociates a little bit from it, and it's hard for him to talk about serious shit sometimes. He will, but it's hard. Kid's been through like the ringer, absolutely. And like, his parents' divorce, I mean, even that was brutal. I mean, they had to spend time between both houses. I never had to do that. It was just me and my mom always. Like, they had a very different experience from me growing up. They didn't have that time with just mom like I did. And they really didn't have her sober at any point like I did. And it's, the whole story is very sad, and there hasn't been that good, like, the thing that makes it okay yet. There hasn't been that. That doesn't exist. The thing, and so it's been hard because on one hand, it's like I've been trying really hard to put the band is such an identity for me, and it has to be, and it's the thing that I've always wanted. And only in the last year has it become, I'm the one that has canceled practice. Like, I haven't ever been that person, even through all the fucking shit, even through everything, I never was that person. And now it's like I go through, do I want to do this anymore? Do I have the energy? Do I have the will to make music the way I did? You know, the thing about this kind of grief and this kind of tragedy is it wrecks you. It absolutely breaks you all the way down. And you have to rebuild with, you know, the shit that's left over. Like, truly, it's like it's like trying to build a new house with a bunch of broken, you know, nails and boards. And you know, my health has suffered, my work has suffered, a lot of things have suffered, my friendships in a lot of ways, and other friendships have become a billion times stronger. But I want to never give up on that drive that I've always had. It's like, that's got to be who I am, right? That's got to be what's left. That's got to be the good thing for me, right? I don't know what the good thing for my brother is yet. I really want him to find it. I feel like he doesn't have a thing, really. I mean, he's brilliant and he's weird and he kind of believes in conspiracy theories, which is kind of weird and neat, but I don't know what he never had like the thing that I had, which was, I have to play drums. I have to, like, lying about it as a child, like all the way back to the beginning, where it's like, that's who I am, period. And I've never questioned that until recently. And for him, it's like that thing that he is, the thing that makes him him, isn't clear. And that kind of, he was robbed of that, I think. And my sister too.
There's two things that I sort of think of when you say that. Like, I can understand questioning the direction of your life when you have a tragedy like that, and because you used playing drums as a coping strategy for your entire life. It's been a way of dealing with sadness
Absolutely.
and chaos and tragedy. There's been a consistent thing that you could apply yourself to. It was Sisyphus's stone. You could push that stone uphill and continuously improve yourself and see progress when everything else around you is kind of chaotic. But if the pain is deep enough, and it has been for you, sometimes that doesn't touch it, you know, and you start thinking, why am I doing this if it's not going to make me feel better, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's complexities to that too. You know, we've gone through some changes in the band as well that are independent of all of this. We've changed bass players a couple of times. Mandy stopped playing with us because she discovered that she had an autoimmune disease, and also simultaneously discovered a passion for children's literature and decided she wanted to pursue that. Mm-hmm. And that's the best reason to quit a band ever. Yeah, it's literally there's no better reason. Is like, hey, I need to write kids books, and also my body says no. It's like, okay, yes, all right. And Mandy's already got a book out there that she published called The Least Impressive Muffin, and it's fucking awesome, and I love it. And it's the most it's so Mandy. It's exactly Mandy. And I'm so proud of her. So there's absolutely no bad blood there. I miss playing with her. That's a fact. Playing with Mandy is always, it always feels right. It's so good.
She's such an effortlessly creative musician.
And Mandy, as a bass player in particular, Mandy will find the most sparse part that makes the song, and you're like, God, there's really not that much going on. Like, it's very, like, it's just the essential bit that you need, and it's not always what you expect. And it just the element that she brought to the band was undeniable, and Mandy is very much a part of everything that anything that you hear that motherfucker has done is absolutely 1/3 Mandy Branch, if not more sometimes.
Yeah, on Wild Cherry Nightmare.
Yeah.
No one delivers 4 quarter notes with more conviction.
It's right.
In the world than Mandy Branch on that song, and it's amazing.
It's so true. There's a song we have on our EP called ... and it's the bass part is the song, and literally it's just me and Erika Strout doing fun fancy shit that we think is cool, and Mandy just literally decimating an 8th note bass part that is very straightforward. Like I'm terrible at guitar and bass, but I could probably like kind of figure it out. It's that straightforward, but it is so compelling and so essential and perfect. It's perfect. And there are times that, no disrespect to anybody that's played with us since, but it's just that song doesn't translate the same way to me anymore. It just doesn't, because it's, for whatever reason, it's the, like you said, delivering it in a certain way. And Mandy's just got a touch. Yep. She does. And
she's brilliant.
Yeah. And she had a short project that she did in her spare time called Father Werewolf, which is fantastic. And
they played the barbecue this last summer.
Yep.
Right before Pinky Diddle Poodle.
Yep.
They were great.
Yeah. And I don't know that they're going to keep doing it, but
I think Aces Forrest.
Yeah. Forrest is in Philly now going to school, which is awesome. Good for him. But Father Werewolf, man, like literally anything Mandy does is awesome. It's true. Like she just makes good music, period. Yeah. But so
are you doing therapy or anything?
I've gone to therapy on and off. It's hard because,
yes, of course, you're not dealing with, this isn't, you don't have a hangnail.
Yeah. You
have a disrupted childhood.
Yeah. I've been to several therapists and different ones, and there are reasons for that. Like I had a therapist in the midst of this that said that she found me intimidating, and I'm like, okay, well, goodbye. I'm like, why? It's like I was being really raw, but none of that. It was very much like a therapist conversation, like. And then this happened, and I felt this way about it, and you're listening, and hopefully at some point you'll give me some sort of tool to help me survive, which wasn't happening as much. And it's like, I don't know, you're just kind of intimidating. And I was like, okay. There was what she said, I think specifically, was sometimes I give you feedback and it seems like you already have an answer to why that's not going to work, which is fair. I shut down shit sometimes, especially when I'm feeling like, doom.
Yeah.
I've been doomy in the past, and honestly, like it's a shame I don't play like piano or guitar, because I would have written like such doomy, sad shit.
Right.
It's just not my lot in life. And it's hard to translate like terrible sadness on a drum kit. It's really hard.
I mean, when I went through my divorce with my first wife, I went through a period where I was trying to master the drum feel of Harvest, the Neil Young record, because it was the most devastated.
That's an awesome thing to do, and now I want to go do that.
Well, it's funny because it seems like, well, these are really sparse parts, should be pretty easy. Yeah. And you put it on the headphones, and you're like, how is he simultaneously pushing the song and playing behind the beat at the same time? It's Kenny Buttrey, who was actually one of my favorite drummers. He's Linda Ronstadt's boyfriend for a long time. Just an absolute genius. But yeah, this is how you channel terrible sadness through a set of drums here. So
I've always been obsessed with Mick Fleetwood, but now it's like,
now it's personal.
It's personal. Yeah. It's personal. I'm coming for you, Mick Fleetwood. No.
Yeah.
Thunderdome. No, Mick Fleetwood. I think about him, and like that in history, I think Fleetwood Mac will go down as maybe the most tumultuous band of all time.
I mean, it's up there.
It's fucking up there. The Beatles are up there. This one's up there. I mean, come on, like Fleetwood Mac, and even still, they're still fighting. It's amazing. They're never going to let it go. It's great.
Yeah.
Which makes for amazing music. It always will.
Yeah.
But Mick Fleetwood, despite all of that, writes parts that are completely, it's almost joyful, and it's like you can tell that it's absolutely passion. It's true passion, and the way he writes is very, it's not self-serving, but he does things for himself in those songs. Like, it's like, I'm gonna do this just because I want it there. It doesn't matter. I could have just not done this flip where I play the tom instead of the snare or something silly like that. Like, not silly, but like doesn't have to be there, and it would have been fine. And those songs, you can easily not think about the drums and just get swept away in the harmonies or the guitar or whatever you want to get into, the piano, whatever. But if you really think about the drum parts, it's like there's this guy who's in this really tumultuous situation and has his own shit, and he's writing beautiful parts that serve the song and also for himself. And I love that. I find that to be what, I don't know, that's what making art is, right? It's like you're communicating outward, but it's still yours. It still belongs to you. That part exists because you needed it to be that way. You wanted it to say something.
That's a risk I don't take much as a drummer very often, unless I'm in a situation like 5/8 where I'm just so comfortable that I know I'll get instant feedback, where you think, I'm going to try something that actually, I'm not just doing what the song tells me. I'm going to assert some of myself here, and hopefully it'll make the song better. But if it doesn't, the guys in 5/8 will let me know.
Right.
Like, nah, don't do that.
Man. Having those tight musical relationships are great. Like, being so comfortable with somebody to be like, yeah, that sucks. That's fucking garbage. I hope you throw it in a dumpster.
Right.
I need you to attach that part to a rocket and send it into space. I need you to erase that part of your brain.
Right, but understand, I say this with all the love in my heart, but that is horrible. We have those conversations in 5/8, and it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, Motherfucker. Oh man, Motherfucker it's very much Erika and I. It always has been, and Erika and I have a very, I think we're both John Lennon in that band, which is actually way more fucked up than being John and Paul, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, John's my favorite Beatle, but yeah, I also understand that he was not always kind. No,
and I would imagine that him versus himself is so much worse.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, no, Erika and I have a very I'm definitely more critical of what comes out than other people in that context. In other bands, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
In other bands, I'm so much more open to what could it be. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you want your guitar part to be this way. I'm not going to pick it apart. With Erika, we've been playing together so long, and it all goes back to, Dick Dale. Like, she did something that she didn't know she could do, and then it became a central theme of that song, and now she can do it really well whenever the hell she wants.
Right.
And Erika shocks me constantly with what she can do. And it was never that she wasn't awesome to begin with. She always has been. But Erika's also very she approaches it very academically, like I do, which is why we have to have a bass player, because otherwise we'll just write really clinical shit. But her playing has gotten so. She'll pull something off and I'm just like, I don't even know how the fuck you did that. I think back to when we were Incendiaries, I'm like, that would have never happened then, or that even a couple years ago, there's no way you could have pulled off that crazy technical thing, or this weird sound that you've just, she's really grown into it. And I think I will always think Erika's better than she knows she is, and that might just be me projecting. But there's been so many times when she'll come off, she'll write a riff and I'm like, that's cool. And then she's like, God damn it. That's cool means, but what else could we do with it? It's not it's not good. It's all right.
Well, you guys push each other. I
Oh God, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
one of the great strengths of that band.
And I've definitely pushed her too far, for sure. I've definitely pushed her to the point where she's like, I just need you to like anything I'm doing. I'm like, no, the problem is I like everything you're doing. The problem is I want to take it and, make it something unforgettable. Like I am very hook driven, and I just will pick apart a riff until it is something I can't ever get out of my head ever.
That's very sort of krautrocky. Like
Yes, and
deconstruct.
I'm a huge fan of that. I mean, I love that shit. Unfortunately, I am a big way into that methodology, and I really, enjoy bands that have taken those influences and applied them into like a punk aesthetic. I think it's irresistible to me.
Yeah.
So, been working on a second record for a really long time, and Sick Room Records imploded itself. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, that sucks. I didn't know that.
We're starting from scratch again, and we've had 2 bass players now. Right now we have Adam Hebert, who was in Maximum Busy Muscle with me, who's awesome. He's fantastic. And he's absolutely the best bandmate I've ever had. That dude is just like,
I like that dude a lot.
Oh yeah. There's no mystery to Adam. He's just very straightforward. It's like, that's who you're getting. You know what I mean? Whatever he presents is who he is. And I love that about him. There's
I committed anti-fascist too, so he's on my Christmas card list.
Absolutely. Yeah. Adam will tell you exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
About anything.
Well, I could talk to you all day. I love you so much, but I do want to jump into these questions.
Oh yeah, let's hit
before it gets too late.
Let's do it.
So the 10 questions.
Yep.
You know how we end these things. Your first question is, what is the fondest memory you have of a meal that you've ever had?
So I definitely prepared for this, so this is not off the cuff. Otherwise, I'd just be going for a really long time.
Oh, you have notes?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my God,
I have notes. I'm a nerd.
That's
I
so
come
sweet.
prepared.
Yeah.
I come prepared. So I had a couple of them, but the one that like truly just blew my mind goes back to PRF barbecue stuff. So the first PRF barbecue we did, we made friends with this band, Chung Antique, and they didn't really know anybody either, and they were kind of our same age, and we just loved that band, and we just were insta buds. We were just like, yay, new friends, and everybody that lives in Chicago on Monday goes back to work for the most part. They gotta go back to their lives. And we were like, well, we didn't really, the problem with PRF barbecues, if there's too many bands, is that you don't get enough time to hang out with everybody.
Yes.
Because everybody's fantastic. And you could literally just get a lifetime of information from any single person in there. And it's really interesting stuff. So there's this problem of, do I watch the bands or do I talk to my friends or make new friends?
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and you can't win because you're always sacrificing something. Like you'll miss the set that everyone's like, that was the one, and then you're like, yeah, but I was having this really real talk with my friend, like
right
with the drummer of whatever. So we shared this sentiment with Chung Antique, and we just randomly were like, hey, we're gonna go get deep dish at Pequod's, and anybody that can go should go. And
that is such good pizza.
So yeah, it is. It's quite good. So we went, and a couple people showed up, and it was super fun, and we had a nice time. And then we all had, went our separate ways and went back to our lives and had our post barbecue depression and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And went drudgingly back into reality. The following year, we did the same thing. I was like, hey, we're going to do that again. We're going to have our little pizza hang, and fucking everyone came.
Yes.
And I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many people do you think were in that room?
I don't know. We filled
40,
up that
50?
whole second floor of Pequod's.
And we felt really bad because we were like, oh no, we didn't make a reservation and tell them ahead of time, like, hey, a shit ton of people are coming, because we didn't know. Mm-hmm. We figured it would just be a few stragglers like us, but half of the, not half, but a lot of people showed up, like 50 people. And it was so, I was just like, man, people care. Like, people genuinely care about each other in that community, and they want to spend time with you, knowing what they want to know you. They want to know what's going on with you. And having those folks just show up at the last minute on a whim, and it was just so much camaraderie, you know. And it was also frustrating because I was like, there's so many people now that I can't have the one-on-one that that this was intended to be.
Right.
But the sheer volume of people that were like, you know what, fuck it, let's not go to work today, let's go eat pizza with our friends. Like, it's sweet. It's like so endearing, and it meant everything to us. And it was just such a powerful display of camaraderie and friendship and good stuff, good vibes. So that's the one.
All right. Second question. What's the most frightened you've ever been, or what is the time you were braver than you ever thought you could be?
Well, when my mom died was definitely the most frightened. And then immediately after that, I had to arrange a ceremony on my own, like on the fly. Both of my grandparents at that time were experiencing dementia, had been in the throes of that, and they were at different nursing homes and in critical condition, and there was no resource there, you know. And I knew that it fell to me. I was the next person that was going to do that, you know. There's a lot of complicated shit with my family. So the rest of it was not a choice. I knew it was going to be on me. So I had to do it. And I went into this kind of like superhuman productivity mode that just blocked out everything else. I was like, get it done, get it done, get it done. And my friends stepped up and made it happen with me. And they truly, like, they did 99% of the actual putting it together. Like, Incendiaries did that. Mandy did that. Erika did that. Mary did that. They made, the same bar that hosts Slopfest every year, Little Kings, the general manager of that establishment, he offered the space for free for us, for me. So we were able to host it without paying a dime, which of course I had no money. So that was absolutely essential, and I'll never forget that. And so, you know, we made it beautiful in there. It was very pretty. And I gave a eulogy for my mom, and everybody just hung out and was there in the room. And it was a lot of people from Athens. It was people that I didn't know gave a shit that showed up, and just I felt like this town really rallied around me right then. And it just absolutely blew me away, and I'll never be able to, I won't, that kindness is that kindness has sustained me.
Yes.
Through everything. And I think about it a lot because I have felt like given up a lot. And I think back on that and a lot of other things like PRF stuff, but that in particular in this town, it's like, this is a small town where everybody knows everybody, and it's easy to just kind of like be like, oh, I'll hang out with whoever another day. Everybody's guilty of it. But that day, everybody was right there where I needed them. And I'll never forget that. So that was very scary and not something I was ready to do, but I just did it. And it went really, really well. And I felt like it was a really good tribute to her. Yeah. So that was definitely terrifying and also wonderful.
What is the thing in your life that you've lost that you regret losing the most?
I think it's obvious that people that have died and passed on are, I thought about this question a lot because I knew I was going to talk about death a lot, you know. I've lost 4 family members and 2 friends in the last 5 years. And it's not, the loss of them hurts, but I've lost other things besides that. I've lost some aspects of my health. I've lost a lot of just that drive. I was always just so hungry to make it happen, to play. And by make it happen, I mean like just get a kick-ass set together, get on a stage, not any grandiose, goals or anything beyond just getting to do the thing as in front of people that want to be there for it. And I definitely don't have that drive the way I used to. And it creates this void in my reality. Like, it's definitely an identity crisis, but it's also, I want to believe it's temporary, but I can't know that. It feels like a loss right now.
I can't speak for you because I'm not you. I'm a little older, and I've been through my underbouts of depression and loss and anxiety, and I can tell you that I was really, really, really hungry in my 20s when I got to Athens to just play music. I was in 3 bands for a while, like you were, and then 5/8 went on to play 200 to 220 shows a year for about 5 or 6 years. I've played about 3,000 shows, I think, in my life, and there have been times where I was like, I don't feel like getting off this couch. I don't feel like going to practice. I don't feel like even going to play a show. But then it comes roaring back. Like, I still love to play. And it's like, is it the most important thing I do? Well, I'm a dad, so,
yeah.
There are more important things.
You've been given a greater purpose, which is awesome.
But I still am super hungry to play. I've got a show tonight in just a few hours, and I'm so stoked about it. Like, it comes back. Depression is a funny thing, but it makes the most temporary things in the world seem permanent.
Yeah, I still do the shows. We book the shows and I do them because I cannot accept the idea that despite physically and emotionally not having that will and to do it and sometimes to do anything at all.
Yeah.
I can't accept that yet. And it's like, I either need to accept it or I need to fucking rise like Phoenix the shit out of this immediately. And I keep trying to find ways to force that, and I haven't discovered it yet.
I think it's a time thing. For me, it was a time thing. I can't speak for you, but I know that for me, it was just a matter of living through my sadness and processing it.
Yeah.
By the way, did you just make Phoenix a verb? Phoenix the shit out of this.
Phoenix the shit out of this.
I love it.
Put it on a t-shirt. Give me some money. Somebody help me out over here.
Tell me about a time you received an act of kindness from a stranger.
I've had a lot. I've had a lot of incredible acts from a lot of acquaintances, friends, and I could spend 2 hours trying to think of people to thank for me just sitting in this room right now, just existing at all. But I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
We were on tour. We were playing some shows, and we played in Cleveland, and it was awesome. This is motherfucker. We played with Gold Mines, some really good friends of ours. We had a great show, and then we had this really awesome idea that we were going to book it all the way back to Atlanta from Cleveland and play a show with Creepoid at the Earl. We're like, yeah, fuck yeah, we can do it. Because at that time we were doing insane drives like that. We're just like, fuck it. Party on, Wayne, let's do it. So we're driving back from Cleveland, and we get about an hour and a half outside, and the van just breaks down. And we're like, damn it. And we made it so far, like that, Mandy's van is sturdy and my home away from home, but
But it broke down and we were like, hell. And it's a Sunday and we're in, I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Ashland, Ohio, which is not Akron, Ohio, which is what I thought it was at the time. And we're literally nowhere. We're nowhere in Ohio. And I'm like, fuck. Well, so I'm walking up the highway. It's really early in the morning because, we're trying to get all the way back to Atlanta in time for sound check or whatever. Walking up the highway. And at some point, Erika Strout runs up and is like, oh, here, take this. And she gives me a little pocket knife, like just in case. I'm like, it's 8 a.m. I'm fine, whatever. It's cool. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. And all of a sudden, a cop rolls up and he's like, hey, you want to ride? And I was like, as long as I'm in the front seat. And he's laughing. He's like, yeah, I saw the van back there. You guys okay? And I'm like, yeah, it broke down. I'm just trying to walk up to the next exit so I can ask somebody where like a mechanic or something is. And he's like, well, I've got some buddies back there, talking to them. And I'm like, okay. It was weird. I was just like, okay, what do you mean talking to them? He's like, but I'll drive you up. There's an O'Reilly Auto Parts at this exit and I'll drive you up there. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I just took it. I'm like, well, we'll see where this goes. And the whole time I've got like the knife in my pocket and I'm thinking about it. And I'm like,
yeah,
what happens now? And of course my mind's racing into like, what if this cop is corrupt and I have to stab him, or like something insane, or like, what if he finds out that I have a concealed weapon or something, like stupid shit, shit that would never happen. So we get up to I get up to the O'Reilly Auto Parts and I'm talking to them. And I'm like, hey, is there tow truck available around here or whatever? And I finally get in touch with Mandy and Erika again, and they're like, where the hell are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm just up at the next exit. A cop dropped me off. I figured he would radio his buddies and get it back to you. And she's like, no, that's not what happened. They thought that, okay, so a concerned Ohioan saw Erika running out of a van towards me and thought, oh, there's a small woman running out of a van. Maybe they've been kidnapped.
Oh my gosh.
Some concerned citizen called the cops because they thought we'd all been kidnapped.
Oh, for God's sakes.
So Mandy and Erika, they're like, blink twice if you're okay and shit. And they're like, no, we're just a band on tour. We're just women. We have a van. Like straight up, that like, you don't think about this shit.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also kind of sad that happened at all. But also like, way to go, Ohioan. Like, thank you for giving a shit.
Yeah,
because we, somebody could have been saved that day, except that there was no problem at all.
Yeah.
So, we get the van towed up to the O'Reilly Auto Parts, and we're talking to them, and they're like, okay, this is what I don't even remember what was wrong. They're like, this is what you need. You're in a tiny ass little town in Ohio. No one is open. You're not going to be able
Sunday.
to. No one's going to be able to help you until 8 a.m. tomorrow. And we're like, fuck. And we're like, well, we could book it. We could ask somebody in Cleveland to drive an hour and a half and come get us. We don't want to do that. Or we could find like a weird motel in this tiny town or something.
Yeah.
And we're like, there's no way we're getting out of here. So we tell, folks in Atlanta, and we're like, fuck, we're not going to make it. Which, that's okay. It happens. But then all of a sudden, there's you see these two guys at the O'Reilly Auto Parts, and they're like kind of whispering to each other. And they're like, follow us outside. And the manager of the place is like, okay, so we're not allowed to help people with their cars, but this is actually a really simple thing to do.
Was it an alternator?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I really truly don't remember. It's been too long. And also like my brain just ain't what it used to be. It's
right.
full of too much bullshit. I don't remember all the good details about things like that. It might have been, I don't know. But
alternator's pretty simple.
He's like, I can do it. It's going to take me like an hour, but like, it's got to be super DL. Like, you can't let anybody know that we're doing this. And we're like, fuck yes, absolutely. So this young dude, he's probably like, he's probably like 20. He's like, I can do this. And so we buy the parts and he just fixes the fucking van. And so we're talking about it, and we did well on that tour, and we have a little bit of extra money, and we're like, we would have had to get a hotel. We would have had to do all this stuff. We would have had to pay a mechanic. You know, there's all these things we would have had to pay for. We're like, fuck it, let's just give that guy $100. We'll give $100 for his 30 minutes of work and being just a kick-ass person, total stranger. We give this kid $100 and he just starts crying.
What?
He just loses it and starts crying. And he goes, I'm working 3 jobs right now. You know, I'm trying to pay off this thing, and I'm just like, I'm in school and I'm working 3 jobs, and I honestly thought I was going to get evicted and I needed to make all this money, and I've been trying to pick up extra shifts. I'm actually going to work a double at Dunkin' Donuts tomorrow, but this money is going to put it over so I can afford my rent this month. And we were just like, that is the most serendipitous, like,
That's
it was
amazing.
so great. And he was just so thankful, and he hugged all of us, and he was just so just genuinely like, you just did this nice thing. You didn't expect to get paid for it. You were just helping some Southern ladies in a van that might have been abducted in Ohio. You know what I mean? It's like, you're just being cool. You're just being a nice guy, you
That's
know?
amazing. I love that story.
So we gave them all like t-shirts and shit, and then we gave that kid $100.
T-shirts that say motherfucker.
Yeah,
on 'em.
exactly. And like, we were just like, this is the greatest thing. And it was just like such a happy ending. Like, we missed the show, but I wouldn't trade that experience. It was so great.
No, it's good. Man, I
Yeah.
love that story.
Yeah, it was good.
What's your favorite place to gig?
Oh, the Earl in East Atlanta.
It's
Absolutely.
a fine bar.
The Earl was the club I went to my entire youth. Like, every cool band I wanted to see was playing there.
Yeah.
Like, the only like, I was a good kid, and the only reason I wanted a fake ID was so I could go see bands at the Earl. I didn't want to drink, I didn't want to smoke, I just wanted to like get into the 21 and up shows. And I just thought that was the coolest place. And I remember thinking, like, man, if I could just get a show at the Earl, which is funny now because I've played there a jillion times, but that place is just, it's the right sized room. The sound is always great. You know, they feed you, they care about you, they remember you. I've played that room with no one in it except the staff, and the staff will like fucking rally for you. You know what I mean? Like, that place is an establishment. Like, if you come through Atlanta and you don't get to play the Earl, then you missed it.
Yeah.
You missed out.
I mean, I like 529 too.
529's also, 529 is, I think of them almost as like a continuum. You know what I mean? Like, 529 has become, I know so many people that are like, oh, I'm going to the Earl and I'm going to bounce into 529, or vice versa. Like, I'm going to 529, bounce into the Earl real quick. And like, they're so close to each other that you can just walk across the street and check out. It's so great. They create such an excellent culture of music that is truly unique, and you can see, like, you know, a national act at the Earl, but then go see, like, you know, you can see a national act at 529 now too. Like, they've really built it out. It's becoming an establishment. Like, it's becoming, you know, symbiotic almost.
Yeah.
Those two places are very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, mine too. Income and visa considerations aside, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Oh, what did I write down?
I love that you have notes. I'm so charmed by this. Like, no one has had notes ever.
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't really mean anything, my notes, what it said. Sorry. Had to catch up. If I could live anywhere, I actually went on a whole like journey with that question. I looked up all this shit. Like, I actually have you ever heard of the quality of life scale?
Index? Yes.
Yeah, the index. Yeah. So I started looking at that because I was thinking about that, and I'm like, it's not about money, but, you know, I'm so American. I'm so East Coast. I'm so used to what the confines of this country are that it's hard for me to imagine going somewhere else where they're like, hey, you can just like go to the doctor whenever you want. You know what I mean?
Right.
And at this point in my life, that's the kind of things I think about. So then I was like, well, that's not the question. The question is, abandon those things. Where do you want to live? And the answer is, I've only been able to experience snapshots of places because of touring, and I haven't really ever gotten to dig into a city as much as I would like. So I would like to modify the question to, can I change the weather in that place?
Sure.
Okay. If
Dream
I could
big.
change the weather, I would live in Chicago in a second. I love that city, but the weather is brutal and I don't think I could handle it.
Yeah. No, I get it, but I mean, people adapt.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's tough to have a dog. I had to walk the dog 3 times a day when I lived there, and it was tough.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I would love to live there, but I don't know if it would be my final spot. I don't know that there is that for me. I would love to live in a country where I'm completely out of my element. Like, I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to spend like a year or 2 in Japan and just figure out how to do that. I have friends, every friend that I know that's lived in Japan has not come back. They're like, this is where it's at. And it's like, that's something I would love to experience. But other than that, Chicago would be great. I had a great time in Seattle. I would love to know that city better. I would love to spend more time there.
I like touring heavily because you get to experience cities over and over as snapshots, and you begin to sort of slowly get a picture of what a city's really like.
Yeah. At this point, I feel like I've had like a teaspoon of a lot of places. But I want a big gulp, so it's hard for me to answer that.
I want to play Milwaukee more personally.
Milwaukee's awesome.
Isn't that a cool town?
Also, like, the thing is, like, if I was just going to up and move somewhere totally different, Milwaukee would be a great place to start because I just know so many great people there.
Yeah, baby,
great bands. Yeah. It'd be a cool place to give it a shot.
Yeah. Do you have an ideal musical instrument, and if so, do you own it already?
So I play a 1976 Ludwig Vistalite, and it is clear, and I've been playing it for a while. Certainly the entire time I've been a motherfucker, and I can't imagine playing that music on a different kit at this point. I've done it, but it's never right. Like, that kit belongs with that band. Now, that being said, that being said, I would love to, like, I mean, shit, the kit in the corner of this room is pretty on point for what I'm interested in. I would love to get like a 60s 3-ply, Ludwig, Ballard from the Rocketeens. I think he has one of the kits that I would, like, his Blue Sparkle Ludwig. I would love to have that kit in my arsenal.
Boy, he's a great drummer too.
God, he's the best, and he's a great guy as well. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that I'll ever be satisfied. I, like you, am a gear junkie. It's like, is there an end to this question?
Well, I think for me, the kit that I'm playing most often now is that Thermogloss Ludwig. It's got,
I would love that one too.
3-ply toms and a 6-ply kick, because I couldn't find a 3-ply to match. But I put, that's actually the.
You think it's doing it?
I gotta tell you, man. It's maybe the secret that I've been keeping most close to my heart until you got here. But that 6-ply kick with the Emperor batter with a felt strip and a like a P3 style resonant head sounds just like John Bonham's kick drum.
Yeah, I have a 6-ply maple.
It sounds more like John Bonham's kick drum than the ones that are supposed to sound like his.
I gotta tell you, of the ones that I've messed around with, I haven't had one to like own and love. But my 6-ply, you wouldn't. You can't be mad at it.
Yeah, right.
You can't be mad at it. It sounds like it does that thing. It does that big boom. It does booms. that attack with all the resonance. It does the work. I miss playing that kit. I wish it was. One day we'll put a pin in this. One day I would love to totally redo that kit with you.
Oh man,
you'd be the one I would choose for that project for sure.
We could wrap that kit, and make it beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there an instrument that you had to give up that has been stolen or lost, or that you had to sell, or?
I am extremely lucky. I have never had anything stolen. Exactly. Patrick just knocked on wood for me.
Yeah.
But and I do not think for a second that is because of anything I've done. I think it's, I think that shit is wrong place, wrong time. I think we've been very, very careful. I think sometimes when you're touring, when it's women on tour, there's just a sense of like, you've got to be really, really careful. You have to watch everything all the time. And I was
there when your wallet got stolen.
That's right. That's different. I wasn't paying attention that moment. That's true. That did happen. But but as far as gear, I've been very, very lucky. And I don't know that that's contributed to anything, or attributed to anything. I think it's probably just good luck, man. And as far as everything I've sold, I've bought stuff and then been like, this isn't me, and sold it and not felt
Never looked back,
bad about it. I feel very good about. I've stuck with a lot of the same stuff, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah. So the next question recently has been it's been the UFO question, but I had this idea the other day. This might be the new 9th question.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry
I didn't prepare
give you
for
notes.
this one.
Yeah, you didn't prepare on it. But if you could play one song with an artist that you've never worked with one time on stage, like you were at the Earl or Madison Square Garden, and someone's like, "Is Erika here? Get up here, play this song with us." What song would that be?
Oh, the song. If you said artist, it would be a lot easier. Song is even tougher.
Who's the artist?
Honestly, there was a period of time where I felt like Fiona Apple was kind of my dream gig. I saw her perform, and the band.
You like those hyper creative girls.
The band.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's interesting. I'm having a life about it, but but yeah, no. Her band that she had was absolutely phenomenal. You could tell that some of them were hired on, but it didn't matter. Like, it was so, and the drum parts require so much. Like, it was almost symphonic at times, and then other times it was just tough, and other times it was, getting out a trigger pad, and it was so, like, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Like, the drummer was incredible. However, like, that's like a dream gig for me as a player. I feel like it would be really musically satisfying. But if you're talking about one song ever, it would be "To Hell with the Good Intentions" by McCluskey.
Oh,
I would
man.
fucking destroy it, and it would be, the stage would light on fire.
Yeah.
"To Hell with the Good Intentions," for whatever reason, is like an epic anthem of my entire, like, I don't know, musical experience, and it's very tongue in cheek. But if I could, I've covered that song live, and every time I've gotten, goosebumps, and to do it in front of people with that band would be just,
it's a great
stupid cool. But anyway,
this is the last question.
Mm-hmm.
If you could imagine a taxi that can go anywhere in time or space, and you got into that taxi and you said to the driver, "Hey man, take me home." Where is home?
Home has become here. Athens is home. I moved a lot as a kid, and I had always a really hard time associating with where I was living because there was so much turmoil, and feeling safe was not an option. Up until about 2010, my grandparents' house would have been home because it was the one constant in my life. It was always there. They bought that place in the 60s, and it was not going anywhere. That house has been sold. I haven't been in many, many years, and that's very difficult for me as well. It's kind of like, I didn't feel like I had a home for a really long time, but then I realized that I've created that for myself. I've moved in Athens a lot. I've moved probably 6 times, like every couple of years. But where I am now is I've been there the longest. I've been in the same place for about 4 years, and which doesn't sound like a lot for people, but it's kind of a lot for me. And it's completely been sustained by me, 100%. Like, I've been able to create my own safe space, and that's something that I'm very protective of, and it's also something that I'm very proud of, because just having stability was a goal that I had growing up. It's one of the reasons why I haven't, like, you say, like, where would you want to live? Because it's hard for me to think that way, because it's so hard for me to obtain stability that, like, once I have it, I'm like, nope, you can't. Yep. Nope. It's a baby bird that I'm nurturing in my hand,
Right. I understand completely.
So right here where I am is home with my good friends.
Well, this has been really, really great. I'm really glad you're able to do it.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Well, I have to tell you something. I've said many times that I started this podcast with two dear friends in mind. That there were two millennial friends that I had who were struggling with depression, and I didn't have enough experience to reach them and say, this is what it was like for me, and this is what I hope for you. So I thought by getting enough musicians together to talk about this, if my friends could hear it, that they could maybe heal. And one of those people is you.
Oh, that's and
you've been such a huge inspiration to me. And when I've seen you suffer with your sadness, I just thought, I love Erika so much and I want to help her, but we're
Patrick, you just turned this into a very special episode. This is a very special episode, and I insist that you call it that. Oh, that's such a gift. What a gift. I've enjoyed this podcast so much, and it's been something we've been literally since the beginning of it. You've been saying, come in. And there's been a lot of times when I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't eat. I've had a lot of really scary, isolated moments. And this project, and like I said earlier, it speaks to me directly. Like, this project is exactly what I exist around, like healing, living, surviving, and somehow keeping your art alive. And that's, having an outlet for that and talking about it in a very real way is something that only recently people are able to do. So yeah, I listened to the episode with Sam Paulson, and that was very meaningful to me. I mean, that's a person that I've always, musically looked up to, and has, I'm the type of person, I'm going to say like everything that's in my head, but I know she's not. And I thought it was very brave of her to come on this. And, honestly, it gave me the guts to do it. So thanks, Sam. And thank you for putting a microphone in front of people and letting them share their vulnerability, but also what makes them essential to what we're trying to do out here. And playing music for for the people that give a shit about it, ultimately.
Yeah. There's no extra people in this group of people that I love. So
thank you for I'm at a loss, but I genuinely I hope you do 1,000 of them. I hope you continue this for a very long time, because I think it's every second of this is worth everything. It's everything. Like, it's fantastic. I've been really enjoying it. I've been diving headfirst into the podcast, and it reaches me, and I hope it reaches others that need it.
Me too. Thank you. Man, that was good. I'm so proud of that. So proud of Erika for being so brave and so honest and so open, and I'm so glad we did that interview. I was stoked. Thank you, Jake Kreger, our erstwhile producer. He was our first ever guest on this show, and ever since then, he's been sending me show notes after every episode, trying to help me make it better. If the show is better now than it was the first time you heard it, due entirely to Jake's work. Thank you, Jake. Thank you also to my friend Gene Woolfolk and his band, The Powder Room. All of the music you hear on this show is from the Powder Room's album, Curtains. That album's available at their Bandcamp page, which is at thepowderroom.bandcamp.com. You can also get the album Lucky, which is the Powder Room record that I played on there. Parenthetically, the front cover of the album Lucky has a picture of a band van burning down to the axles. That was the van we woke up and got into and tried to drive away after the last show of a tour in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the van burst into flames and a whole bunch of our equipment burned up in it, which was a very, very very bad morning on tour. Thanks to Heil Microphones for these two PR40s that I use in almost every interview. They've been really great microphones. I got a good deal on them from them, and I feel really, really, really in their debt because these are great microphones for a podcast. If you're thinking about upgrading the microphone you use for a podcast, look into the Heil PR40. It's very affordable. It sounds amazing. Thanks again to Jittery Joe's and Greer Amplification for your continued sponsorship. Remember that we have t-shirts and coffee for sale at the Crash and Ride website, crashandridepodcast.com. If you're experiencing anxiety and depression and you're contemplating self-harm and you need some help, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. If you're a trans person experiencing anxiety, depression, or gender dysphoria and you need to talk to somebody, call the Trans Lifeline's peer support line at 1-877-565-8860 or go to translifeline.org. Until we speak again, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask for help if you need it. Go see live music, support your favorite band, and remember, loud guitars save lives.